Well, happy hump day to you right here. It's our very first hump day of 2023. George Brauchler with you on The George Show on 710 KNUS. It turns out that no matter how much Billy and I talk, we can't actually slow the hands on the clock. And so we're just jibber-jabbering about this and that as I look up and see that the show open is actually finishing. You know then by that description that, of course, Billy's back with us. Billy, thank you so much for rejoining us. There was a moment there where I thought you're not coming back.
There's a moment I was thinking I'm not coming back.
And that was about 10 minutes ago, which is weird because you were here.
Mine was when the alarm went off this morning. Like, do I really need to do this? Is this a really good idea?
Every single day, man. Every single day when my little watch alarm makes its little chirp and I think, really? Yeah. I swear I just put my head on the pillow. This is outrageous.
This is ridiculous. Who gets up at this ridiculous hour? Yeah.
Well, listen, Blake did a great job filling in for you,
good.
But you know, Blake is still just new enough that the idea of saying, Blake, could you come up with sort of, hey, Lauren Boebert's on Fox, the You Choose the News or that's in the future for Blake. And I imagine as he continues to work with Pete, he's just going to continue to chase you for your job.
Well, he still has problems. He has things that he's worried about, like, you know, his reputation and what people think of him. Me, however,
and happiness.
What's going to happen at this point? Who's going to think worse of me? I mean,
he's able to produce a quality of facial hair that is off-putting to me because I can't.
I can't at all.
If you're watching us on YouTube right now, first off, good morning. But if you're not watching us on YouTube, what's wrong with you? Get to the YouTube thing. And by the way, in keeping with the tradition of trying to sound as old as I am, the YouTube, get the YouTube app and put it on your phone and then go search for The George Show, George Brauchler Show on 710 KNUS. Come get us, subscribe to it, like it, send it around to people that you really aren't fond of and trick them into watching this thing and they'll love it. But what you can tell from looking at this day in and day out is Big Daddy has real issues with facial hair. I can get enough whiskers that a drill sergeant will scream at me for not shaving, but not enough to actually generate like a mustache. I couldn't even go Cliff Clavin from the Beard Challenge episode of Cheers. I mean,
I can do a goatee, but it's over here in the sides and on
Billy,
the cheeks and
I
stuff.
now am going to put in a formal request on behalf of everyone that's looking at YouTube. Please do the goatee.
No, I don't want to do the goatee. I did for a while. I had the goatee. And the thing is that my brother has a small beard, and so it's kind of well shorn, and he keeps it close. And I just don't. I feel like every time I grow my facial hair, like I'm trying to look like my brother.
Listen,
I'm trying to be younger, and I can't.
Couple
do that.
thoughts. One, you say shorn, I'm instantly thinking of Austin Powers. But
excellent.
Two, couldn't we do like a Fu Manchu's the News? You know what I mean? Like, couldn't we add those two things together?
I will consider it. In fact,
you choose the Fu Manchu. Like, we're gonna get there.
This morning was the first time I'd shaved in 4 days, so I was close. I could have come in with some.
I would have liked to have seen that. I haven't shaved in a month. And you can't even tell now.
That's like my my redhead son. It's there's no body hair, there's no facial hair. It's really funny. He shaves like once every 3 weeks. His friends are mad at him because there's no body
it's
hair.
Sort of bittersweet in a way because one, I'd love to, as people go back through that, you know, everything's cyclical. You know, in the 70s there was a lot of the longer hair and I can't go longer hair ever since we shaved our heads in high school football and I had that free feeling. I guess shorn. I just could never let my hair grow long again. And then the Army agreed. But the facial hair thing, I've wanted to do it. Like Movember is still just no November for me. I got nothing.
Wow. I've done the Movember a couple of times. And there was one time when I think we got into, I guess it was about this time of year. And my wife came up and she goes, I want to see your face again. I'm like, yeah, okay, it's good for me.
And let you back in the house.
Yeah, exactly. That was nice. I didn't have to, fight the dog outside for the scraps of food.
I have given thoughts when I'm at Floyd's or whoever's cutting my hair.
Yeah.
Do I say, this is going to sound weird, but can I get a handful of that goodness right there, put it in this little snack size Ziploc bag, and I'm going to go home and like create my own little mustache on a piece of Scotch tape and just to live out the fantasy. What would it be like if George could grow a full manly mustache?
See, I'm always torn to sit there, and when they ask me how with the haircut, I'm always torn. I want to say Mohawk. Just because, only because it's kind of long here on the top of that time, and it would be perfect time. And how funny would it be to see an old guy that's losing his hair with a mohawk? I mean, I think that is
really
comedy
fun.
Gold. I think it's comedy gold.
I think it's great.
Yeah,
I think the other thing that it turned out to be a benefit for was in the Army, out in the field, there are a lot of times they're not giving you warm water to shave with. It's a dry shave.
Oh, yuck.
When you don't have to really shave and you can cover up just about anything with, in the old days, we had camo sticks. I don't know how to describe it. Really hard. Yeah, you'd want to warm these things. Yeah. But they're just brutal. Like, I don't know who they're testing these things out on, but they just stretch your face and your skin. But they do cover up the occasional teeny tiny little blonde whisker that I could generate.
There we go.
That was a plus compared to my friends who are out in the woods screaming, like, as they're pulling a dry razor.
Oh, that's awful.
Trying to pull it all off. So the hidden gems of the facial hair thing. I'm not sure how we got here other than last comment, my brother, God bless him.
Oh, yeah.
Let's just say he's not going to listen to this podcast. Bald, right? Bald guy,
okay.
But can grow facial and back hair like nobody I've ever met. I mean, this guy can generate a beard, a mustache, all sorts of things, but up top, just nope.
I want to know that idea of this evolutionary path that we're on.
Yeah.
When and where was it decided that we males get to a certain age and no more hair up here on top, but random hair everywhere else? I mean, I'm not sure about it. My eyebrows were very nice when I was younger. All of a sudden I got to a certain age and they decided to go rogue. Now it looks like I have some hairy beetles sometimes on my face.
Oh, thank you for saying on your face. I thought we were going somewhere else.
Also, ear hair. Why? Why at a certain age do you all of a sudden as a male get ear hair? I didn't need it my entire life. And here's the thing. It's not like it's protecting the inside of the ear. It's like on the top. So it looks like my ears have antenna. I just, come on.
See, that's the other thing is now it's being pointed out to me when I have a hair or two, maybe up to 4 or 5 protruding from an ear or a nose in a way that I'm not even aware of it. But I'm like, why are they doing that now? Like, why were they all kind of subdued? And like, what have I done with my existence that the hair's like, you know what, we need to show ourselves right here in this spot? I don't know.
My boys never have problems with random nose hairs coming out and going blah, 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 blah. But all the time, every week I got something where the thing's going too long. And then of course in weather like this, when you're breathing, it tickles because they wiggle back and forth and you're like this, and then you can't, then as you're driving, you're somewhere else, you can't very well go up there and deal with the hair because then it looks like you're playing with stuff that's in the nose, and there are societal problems. That's all I'm saying.
Corey, our buddy who brought in the donuts the other day, texted the toughest
so
question for the haircut is how do you want your haircut? And then his answer was shorter.
That's a good one. That is very good.
And then Alexa has sent in a picture. I'm just going to have to show you afterwards. It is a bizarre cut that is gender fluid, is my guess, is the only description to give here. It is an entire circle of hair that goes around the head, but just a very thin circle everywhere else.
You have my attention.
Yeah. And then
I'm willing to do that.
Someone said goatees are gross. They make, can we say vagina mouths on man faces? And I don't know if that's true. I don't think we can say it, but nonetheless, that is out there. I don't know how we got sidelined.
I'm not sure, but it's been fun.
Yeah, it's obviously been good for me too. Now, the other update for me is, as you know, yesterday at this time, Amanda was on a plane for 17 hours flying. So we get through the whole day. We do this stuff. And then 5-ish clock our time, which turns out to be they're 15 hours ahead.
Ooh.
So about 8 a.m. in Singapore time tomorrow, which was today. She lands, and now I'm begging her to find a way to shoot a picture, give us a call, something to be able to update us on this. And I think that that's going to happen. So we'll see if we can't get her on the radio. And of course, folks know that we've got, because Billy's back in the saddle, of course, we get the Thorpe Report and you choose the news. I'm not anxious to rush into that because you and I haven't had the chance to talk about some of the news of the day.
Yeah, not at all.
One, did you watch Monday Night Football? Because yesterday, the listeners and I spent a long time having conversations about Hamlin. There was some talk about, was it the jab and all this other stuff?
Yeah.
Did you watch it, and what were your thoughts?
It's really weird when you bring this up, because my son and my wife normally doesn't watch NFL football with us on Monday nights, but my wife, my son, and I were all watching live when it happened. And that was a little surreal. There are only a few moments in my life where I've been watching when things like that happen. One of them being September 11th. Another one being when, Sid Vicious broke his leg live in professional wrestling on TV.
Who doesn't remember that?
Yeah, so there are certain ones. The Frank Tarkenton was watching that one. So there are certain ones in which I absolutely remember. And that one was spooky. And I remember seeing when he gets up and then just collapses.
That's so
and
weird.
My first thing was heart attack. I was the first, and they're like, no, past that. I'm like, no, that's a heart attack based on how he fell. And I'm like, that's a cardiac arrest, and they got to get in there really quickly. And it was really scary. And I will say, a little disappointed that they did not cancel the game sooner. I understand why the NFL wanted to go forward and why some of the teams wanted to go forward, because of scheduling issues and because of money and the inconvenience of people bringing people in and out of the stadium. How do you verify tickets? A whole laundry list of questions there. So I understand. But the issue was those Buffalo Bill players could not walk back out on that field. Now, it's a little bit different in my mind for the Cincinnati Bengals players. Now, again, it's going to be very, very traumatic for them. And I have been in live sporting events when we've had major injuries. I ended up causing one of them. So I understand where a game has been suspended for 20 or 30 minutes. I was responsible for one of those. So I get it. And I understand I've had people on my team suffer major injuries and how that's so difficult to go on. And I remember a couple of those. And it's difficult. I mean, it's a tough road to continue to play when something like that happens. And especially, I've never been in a situation where there has been something this serious, though. I will make that openly clear. I've never been in a situation where someone has had a cardiac arrest or that type of a life-threatening injury. Ours are the things that I would have been involved in are seizures and major broken bones, which again I've been responsible for. So that's kind of what happened.
I think that is probably a pretty broadly held reaction to the whole thing. I don't know how many people thought it was a heart thing. I didn't, because I'm just not a doctor guy. It would have been one thing if there had been a big, huge tackle, dude doesn't get up, right? Then you're like, oh my, but to see him stand up, go for the helmet, and then just, that's it, man. Someone just flipped a switch. And it was like Avatar, man. They just yanked him out of that little thing and boom, he just collapsed to the ground, and that was it. There's still no update other than he remains in critical condition. I haven't read anything else, have you?
And no, I haven't at all. And the reason I immediately thought heart attack is because I had an episode with some blood pressure medication that I was taking about 6 years ago that took me out, where the lights just went out. And I went bloop, just like what he did. And as soon as I saw that, I went, oh, that's a heart thing. And again, wasn't 100% sure as far as what, the causes, anything else. But as soon as I saw him do that, I went, oh, daddy knows what that's about. So, I've done that one before. And so that immediately, because if it was something where he passed out, the body behaves differently. The fact that he just dropped back, that to me was immediately a cardiac thing. And again, only because of my personal experience where it's happened to me. So, yeah.
It's just one of those, I want to know what happens. I realize our attention will move past this. I think the truth of that night hasn't been fully told. And I think at some point it's going to become clear that the NFL may not have made the right decision for the right reasons. It may have made the right decision because the coaches talked to the NFL commissioner and said, you're not going to get us back out onto the field. And I'm pretty sure that the Bengals, and I think it's Jason was the coach for the Bengals, would have stood in solidarity with the coach for the Bills and said that, no, you can fine us, you can do whatever you want, but we're all done here today. And I think the NFL was probably like, oh, and I imagine they wonder too about precedent setting.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like, if we do this for this as the next major thing, and why can't we? But, their first gut reaction was the show must go on.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that at least for this limited, single, very unique moment, humanity won out.
Yeah, I did too. I'm happy that humanity won out on this one. And I'm curious how the NFL is going to deal with some of these things going forward, because there are going to be, I'm not going to say cardiac arrest, but there are going to be more and more severe injuries inside of the NFL. And it's just based on physics. That's all it is. It's just based on how the game is played, and we are getting bigger, stronger, faster, better conditioned athletes that hit harder and are going to deliver blows that we have not seen in recent memory. And so you are going to see many more severe injuries, not on this level is what I'm saying, but the NFL is going to have to deal with this, that we are going to see more and more people carted off, and you're going to see more and more people having some serious injuries. Well, it's just physics. It's the fact that these guys are that big, that fast, that quick, and they hit at a level that we've never seen before.
It's different. I thought you were about to go Kanye West there with that bigger, faster, stronger. I thought you were going to do that. Maybe we'll hear that for bumper music. Listen, there's other things to update as well, but I don't want to step on the toes of the Thorpe report. I'm not sure what you have in the queue ready to go.
I don't either, honestly. It'll be a surprise to both of us.
As well as the You Choose the News. So to give us as much time as well, by the way, Texter, this is, I think, a warning shot from yesterday's show, you, Miss Billy.
Yeah.
Please, no vaccine talk. No, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the lovers here. Game should have continued for this reason, and I think the reason was the Matrix, but I don't think that's actually true.
The problem is this. I understand when you are an observer saying the game should continue. That is different when you are in the locker room and you have seen one of your teammates
someone that you're not just like, is his name Timmy? I mean, you've been practicing it intensely with this guy for months, if not a couple years.
And the thing is that you can't then focus on that part of the game, and it is incredibly difficult. And again, I've never been in a situation where someone's life has been threatened and been taken off the field, but we have had serious bodily injuries, and I understand how difficult that is to get back in the headspace in order to play. And the headspace to play where I was in soccer is different than the headspace you need to be in for football. And I don't think it's possible after what the Bills saw to be in the right headspace.
Timing couldn't be better, because a texter just came in and said soccer moms will divert their sons away from football to soccer.
They will.
And I had mentioned this yesterday. Graham's instant reaction to me to this whole thing was, this is going to make it harder to convince mom to let me play tackle. And I'm like, yep,
there is. Exactly right. Absolutely is. Yep.
I mean, mom hates the fact that he wrestles, which, by the way, there are some really uncomfortable times on the mats to watch.
Oh yeah.
But he had his little wish list for Christmas, and some of it included wrestling stuff, like a new singlet or a sweatshirt or something, and she wouldn't get him anything. She is so not supportive of the wrestling thing. She does, and she'll go to the matches and stuff, but she just does not want to encourage it. So this is just going to be another one on, by the way, head injuries, CTE. Oh yeah. And your heart could stop, So I think he's right about that. And this texter's probably hitting upon it too. Look, let's do this. Let's cut away for a break. Come back. We'll turn it over to Billy back in the saddle for the first time in 2023. We'll get the Thorpe report and the You Choose the News. And then, of course, we'll get into the news of the day. Got some big guests coming up, and we'll talk about those in the next segment. Stick around. You can hit us on the text as half a dozen or more. No, more than that. People have already texted us. Hit us at the app, 710 CanUS app. Great way to listen to the show and communicate with us. You can hit us at 710canus.com. Or if it moves you, and I hope it moves you, pick up that phone and dial 303-696-1971. In fact, for those of us who have us on speaker somewhere in their house, Alexa, dial 303-696-1971. It's George Brauchler on The George Show, 710 KNUS. You don't have to put on the red light. Every time I hear that song and those words, I think of Eddie Murphy from 1982's Trading Places.
Oh, that is great.
Remember that one?
That is good.
Oh, my goodness.
Also, though,
you know what? It wasn't Trading Places. It was the Nick Nolte movie. It was when he was, when he was in prison. He gets released. It was Nick Nolte, 48 Hours.
48 Hours, yep.
That was it right there.
This also, low-key, Stuart Copeland here. Listen. So good. I mean, it's a core of jazz, core of jazz drumming, and again, he's syncopating this. So what he's doing is he's hitting the drums on the 2 and the 4. Most times you hit on the 1 and the 3, but he's hitting the 2 and the 4.
Dude, once again, you reveal a level of knowledge of stuff that is like, I feel like I'm talking to a mechanic about how my engine works, and I'm like, it works, and you're like, but let me tell you why. I'm like, it just, as long as we had a texter text in when I said originally before the break, Alexa dial 303-696-1971. Their Alexa in their bedroom actually chirped out, would you like to call 303-696-1971? The answer is yes.
Yes.
Now, really cruel would be if I said Alexa dial 911. Well, I'm not going to do that because that would be crazy.
But what you should do is you should have Alexa, you should order stuff and say, Alexa, send 3 dozen donuts to KNUS Radio.
Oh, yes.
Something like that.
Yeah. And when Alexa asks, yes, that's true.
Absolutely.
Here's a one. I'm saw a texter again, final reference. I'm actually surprised someone hasn't found a way to pin Hamlin's condition on Donald Trump. Here's where we're at weather-wise. I didn't do this in the first segment. And this is, again, a comparison to yesterday as well, because we're constantly trying to hold the weather voodoo people accountable. Yesterday, the weather folks at Channel 7, our buddies, said that it was going to be 38 degrees high today. Clearing skies, mostly sunny. Today, they have ratcheted that down 3 degrees. Now, that's about 9% down to 35 degrees. Now, I know there's a listener out there that says it's not really 9% because Celsius versus Fahrenheit. I'm just going off of numbers and the math I was taught at Bear Creek High School. For tomorrow, Thursday, dry and milder. They've said, nope, it's actually going to be 2 degrees colder than we thought yesterday, 45 degrees. We're going to stay in the 40s until next Tuesday when it's supposed to shoot up to 50. But don't count on that because using the words of, or at least the paraphrase of Lisa Hidalgo, anything after 3 days is really just us guessing. We're just kind of making stuff up, but we'll keep you informed if there's any other changes out there. It looks like a nice day to get outside if you can. Now, listen, I've missed this in all of 2023. It's the first one. We're unwrapping it. I hope it's extra special. I know people are out there waiting with bated breath or something on their breath. It is the Thorpe Report, and you choose the news with Billy.
Good morning. And yeah, look,
is that bated breath?
It has that fresh new smell. That's good for the new year. Yeah. So good morning, sir. Governor Jared Polis yesterday asked lawmakers for an additional $200 million towards property tax relief. That's in addition to the $700 million they passed last year. He also updated his budget proposal yesterday. Polis is a Democrat, and as you recall, sailed to re-election in November. And he updated his budget proposal to reflect the most recent December economic forecast. So what changed in the budget? Well, it went from $42.7 billion to $42.6 billion. A tenth of a billion.
Also, someone asked him in a smart question, hey, remember the gas tax that you suspended until the election was over?
Yeah, bringing that back.
How about making that go away permanently in light of the December forecast? And he said, pass.
Of course he did.
No thanks.
Yes, he also wants to divert more money to job training, more money to leverage federal dollars and push the state toward its goal of 100% renewable energy by 2040. And also, he announced the state is going to begin helping the city of Denver transport migrants to their final destination. That sounds quite ominous.
It
really does.
Especially if you've seen the movie Final Destination.
Yes, exactly. According to a news release that was issued by the governor's office, for nearly 70% of the migrants arriving in Denver, it is not going to be their final destination, but due to weather and workforce shortages, the migrants have been experiencing transportation cancellations. Just means it can't go anywhere. Governor's office said it's working with culturally competent navigators to help migrants make travel arrangements. That somebody got paid a lot of money to write that. So basically, they're just doing the Governor Abbott thing. So we'll be doing that later on.
I wonder if that's going to put him in a weird way. This may again be part of the Jared Polis for president sort of launch. You know?
I think that this for me is brilliant politicking because Polis is going to say, well, they're not really ending here. We're giving them the opportunity to then continue their journey into the places they wanted to go. They didn't really want to be here in the first place. So he's going to placate the left that way. Then on the right, he's going to be like, see what I did to the migrants when they came in? Just like your guy Abbott and just like DeSantis. He's getting credit on both sides while trying to play the line. It's very clever. And again, whoever wrote the phrase, culturally competent navigators to help migrants make travel arrangements, you, sir, have earned your job, because that is a BS statement. But thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Elsewhere, the Colorado Appellate Court ruled against an appeal by Patrick Freese and his 2018 murder conviction on charges of December 29th, 2022 is when they made the ruling. He was convicted in 2019 for the murder of then-fiancée Kelsey Barrett. The case led to conviction and resulted in life in prison without the chance of parole, plus 156 years. Elsewhere, Megan Hess, former operator of the Montrose funeral home, convicted of selling body parts without family consent, was sentenced in federal court on Tuesday. I mean, they weren't going to miss him anyway. Hess's mother, Shirley Koch, was also sentenced to federal prison. Hess is going to have 20 years in the Crossbar Hotel. Koch is going to get 15 years behind bars. A new director is taking over the Colorado Bureau of Investigation.
Is that an eBay thing? Like selling body parts?
Well,
can you eBay that?
I bet it's got to be a little bit more low key. There's probably some sort of a Reddit post, I'm thinking. Maybe a Substack that helps with that. I don't know. Some a little more than eBay.
And is it like,
seems too much like advertising?
Is there an Amazon Prime feature where you can send
buy 2 feet, get the third for free? That's whatever it is.
Jesus, that's so sick. What is going on with people?
I know. The idea that I still keep looking at that going,
how do you get into that business? I mean, are you hanging out at a bar after your shift at the corner place and someone goes, know where I can get a spleen? And you're like, it's so funny you ask.
I know, exactly.
I do.
The whole idea is I can see the people going, well, I got these body parts and some of these people wouldn't miss them. But then how do you find the market? That is the thing that you're kind of, putting your finger on, is how do you find the market for old used body parts? I mean, where is that? Who do you talk to about that one? I'm
not sure. And is there a warranty? I mean, do you get it and treat it like, the Hello Fresh meats that stay in the fridge longer than they're supposed to? And you look at it and go, if I crack the seal on this, is the smell going to just wreck me?
Or is it just like a used car? You buy it as is. It's like, Well, elsewhere, they had the murder trial of a 12-year-old boy accused of setting last Halloween's deadly Lakewood apartment fire was vacated on Tuesday as his attorneys wait for a doctor to complete a competency evaluation. The trial for the defendant had been set for early in May. No date for a new trial was offered as attorneys gear up for a series of hearings involving the boy and his alleged 14-year-old accomplice.
The fire starter guy?
Yeah, fire starter guy. Yeah. And finally, St. Vincent General Hospital District has purchased equipment that unfortunately was not properly rated for the altitude in which they are located here in Colorado. Yes, the district reached an agreement with the Lake County Board of Commissioners to receive up to $480,000 from the county to help meet its payroll obligations after the hospital announced in early December that it would not be able to meet payroll. Why? Well, as the hospital prepared to open a $26 million new building in the fall of 2021, it purchased some brand new sparkling medical equipment back in June of that year. It includes scoping equipment to diagnose stomach and intestine problems. It is valued at $46,000 and over $107,000 worth of colonoscopy equipment. Woo. Oh, man, ouch. Okay. Yeah.
Not used, though, right? It's got to be brand new. You can't go use colonoscopy equipment.
But I guess it takes the $107,000. It's brand new equipment. It'll post your pictures on Instagram for you. Just, kind of a plus. Yeah. Interim hospital CEO John Gardner said the hospital later learned the equipment that they paid both $46,000 and $107,000 can't be used because it's not validated for their altitude. It's not properly sealed. So who's ever involved in the purchasing of that equipment, well, good job there. The CEO said because the gastroscope and colonoscopy equipment can't be used, there's no use for another $16,000 video processor the hospital also brought for it. That was the thing they're putting on Instagram. Yeah. So somebody didn't check the description on the equipment and it doesn't work at the altitude. It's kind of like when you were on eBay or Amazon, some of those, and you're ordering something and you don't check the size and you're like, oh my God, that looks like an adorable little ottoman. And you get something that's like 6 inches by 4 inches and it's like a doll furniture piece.
Your hands gestured in my experience 12 inches. What do I know? Let me ask, this is only tangentially related to the last topic. How often at our age are we expected to do the Roto-Rooter thing down south?
I think the rule, they moved it to 50, then they moved it back to like 45 during the COVID. And I think it's either like 2 or 3 years.
No.
I don't know.
Make it more than that because I'm going to be close.
It is the most uncomfortable thing in the world. Now, okay, let's
like
a little oversharing here. Last time you had to check the exit only portion of the body.
Yeah.
Did you?
They found a watch, which is so weird.
It's like in Pulp Fiction. You're just hiding it for a friend. So
great reference. Thank you, Christopher
Appreciate
Walken. Kept it inside me for the entire time. I was locked up in that Vietnam prison.
That is such a great scene because it's this caring scene. And they're like, whoa, that's a good direction I didn't expect.
So Quentin Tarantino.
And then the idea of, and he hands the thing, this guy, the watch, and the kid's going, that was in your butt.
Yeah, that's right.
You had that in your butt. Okay.
Yeah.
So before they put things in your butt, did you drink the liquid or what'd you do?
No, I did the liquid. The liquid the night before and all that stuff.
The liquid's, I don't know. The liquid's awful. I did the liquid too, and the liquid's awful.
I wanted to remain awake because I told them at some point I want to look over my shoulder and wink.
Yeah.
And
that's good.
They said no. They said they couldn't do it that way. And that's awkward because there was another thing. I was just going through security the other day and I did my typical as the woman comes by and I had to go through the restricted access, not the TSA because I wasn't really flying. And she's like, shoes, belts, laptops. And I said, pants? And she goes, pardon me? I said, pants, and I've got my thumbs in my sweatpants. And she goes, and she smiled big and she goes, no, please.
I was just the other day, I was reading a thread online of people where they talk about the brain going into automation mode and you're just kind of like doing things automatically without thinking of them.
Like the show.
And the guy said he was in the TSA line at the airport and when they told him to take off his belt to go through, he dropped his pants. He goes right there in front of everybody. He goes, I wasn't thinking. He
Dude doesn't have anything to hide is what he's trying to say.
Exactly. Or maybe he's just bragging.
Maybe he's trying to show him where he keeps his watch.
Exactly.
His prison purse.
Oh, my gosh. And that's the end of the news. So it's time for, it is time for everybody's favorite radio news game show. You Choose the News, where we have scoured the interwebs. I've had days to get this crazy stuff, and we've given them ridiculous headlines to play this silly radio news game. Why? Well, because they pay us to do it. Yes. But today was a little complicated, so I don't have a sponsor today. So unfortunately, no one in the new year. But we will have hopefully a new sponsor for you tomorrow. But first, let's play the game. Alrighty, sir. Here are your headlines. Headline number 1, it's natural ice. Headline number 2, being poor is fun. Headline number 3, comedy for the win. And headline number 4, stolen from the criminals. Alrighty, sir. Here are your headlines again. Headline number 1, it's natural ice. Headline number 2, being poor is fun. Headline number 3, comedy for the win. And headline number 4, stolen from the criminals.
You know when you come up with these headlines, and I'm going for the crime thing. Unless you come up with something with the word poop in it, then I go there. But let's go with the stealing from the criminals.
Stolen from the criminals. Here we're traveling to the city of Boston. A family in Boston is left with many, many questions after Christmas because of items that they bought at a local Best Buy. The Websters told Boston 25 News that they bought some Microsoft Surface Pro 8s and they purchased them at the South Bay Best Buy location. They made a very puzzling discovery when they were opening presents on the day of Christmas. They found out that, well, inside the box were roofing shingles, not a Microsoft Surface Pro.
What?
Michael Webster's brother purchased the tablet for his wife. The couple couldn't believe it when they discovered the same item was tampered with at another location. So it looks like Microsoft tablets at Best Buy had been replaced by roofing shingles. Now, this has been a popular thing as far as the secondary market for quite a number of years.
Shingles?
Well, what they will do is they'll bring in and they'll give you a computer box or whatever you're supposed to be buying, a Xbox, or a PlayStation, and they fill it with something else. And then they take the money, and before you can open the box, they disappear. And so then you're left there with a box of bricks or a box of roofing shingles.
Best Buy?
Well, not from Best Buy. The thing is, it's the secondary market's been doing this for years. I think Best Buy just said, hey, these criminals have got kind of a scam here that we don't have to sell anything. We still get the money, and they're out of luck. I think that Best Buy might have been finding a way. Yeah, a way to kind of goose the earnings. So I think that's the idea.
Well, think about this. We just lost Best Buy as an advertiser. There's no chance they're going to sign up for us now.
Whoops, sorry.
Oh, there it is. That was Best Buy hanging up and saying,
no, we are not going to be doing this. All right, sir, your second choice this morning. It's natural ice, being poor is fun, or comedy for the win.
Comedy for the win.
Comedy for the win. We're going to Brazos County, Texas for this one. There is a Texas inmate that is asking the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn his murder conviction. Why? Because he says it's all fun and games. In fact, it's just comedy. He's claiming a comedy special has swayed the Brazos County jury and landed him on death row. Yes, those naughty comedians are the reason that I am now sentenced to death. Well, we'll see. Gabriel Hall, 29, is awaiting execution by lethal injection after being convicted of murdering a Texas A&M professor inside a College Station home back in 2011. His legal team is now arguing that footage from the special was later used to sentence their client to death. On October 10th of 2011, Hall entered the home and stabbed the professor to death and then stabbed a 69-year-old wife who did survive the attack.
Good Lord.
While serving time in Brazos County Jail, comedian Jeff Ross filmed a special for Comedy Central featuring the maximum security parts of the facility, including Hall's unit. The video has since been pulled from the official YouTube channel. However, Hall's legal team is claiming that additional footage outside that segment was later presented to the Brazos County jury before they sentenced him to death.
To be clear, by the way, showing his unit, you mean the place where all the jail cells are?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, because then I would get it. It would be...
Exactly. So the legal team is now taking the case to the Texas Supreme Court, saying it is all Jeff Ross's fault. He's just too damn funny. That's why my client is getting the death penalty.
They laugh their way to guilty and then laugh their way to, yes, let's vote for that.
Yeah, I know. Okay, final choice this morning, sir. Being poor is fun, or it's natural ice?
Natural ice.
It is natural ice. At least that's the claim in Kalamazoo County, Michigan. Conservation officers with the Michigan Department of Natural Resources had an encounter that's, well, let's just say it fits right in with You Choose the News. What happened to, according to an official DNR report, it's a bizarre incident occurred early in December at the state game area in Kalamazoo County when conservation officers Cameron Wright and Joshua Salas came across a PT Cruiser that was parked at one of the entrances. The man in the vehicle said he parked there to listen to the owls, and he wanted to be left alone. But the conservation officers noticed there was an open, tall container of natural ice beer in the cup holder. He then asked the man on a scale of 1 to 10, "Hey, buddy, how drunk are you?" He goes, "Well, I'm at a 5, but to be honest, I'm a little drunk," according to the report. Based on the response, the officers
scale of 1 to 5.
Based on the response, the officers began conducting that roadside sobriety test. But partway through, the man started to get a little agitated. He got a little upset. He couldn't sit still, so he then grabbed his rear end, dropped his pants down to his ankles, and let it go.
No. Why would he do that?
Right there on the rear bumper of his PT Cruiser.
With the cops there?
Yes, right in front of the cops. When he was arrested and taken to the hospital for a blood draw on the way, the man noticed that one of the officers was using his GPS and said, "Man, I'm the drunk one here. I have to give you directions on how to take me to jail. You are such a moron." During the blood draw, the man then mentioned to the nurses that they were not actually drawing his blood. She says, "No, I'm not going to lie to you. It's all beer, but it's pure, natural ice." See, natural ice. See, he claimed that his blood was not blood, but it was beer.
Oh, my
It was pure natural
goodness.
ice. Yes. The man was checked into the Kalamazoo County Jail, and charges were submitted to the prosecutor.
Yeah, I want to be a prosecutor on this case.
Yes.
As a young prosecutor, this is the kind of case you get. You want this because you tell this story for 2 decades of your career.
And you show the pictures.
Oh, my sweet goodness.
I just keep thinking that, in the middle of the traffic stop, and you're kind of like, "Oh, nature's calling. I gotta..." Right here.
I just don't.
And the other part is on his own car. Again, the decision making in this entire process. I just, if you were going to, he could have chosen the officer's shoes. He could have jumped up on the officer's car. There were so many other choices he could have made to make a statement.
Right.
But instead, he decides, I am going to drop a deuce on my own car, which, again,
I suppose, as crappy as a decision as that is, I suppose if he does it on the cop car, or if it's not like real damage, it's just kind of icky damage.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
But I think that if I am the prosecutor for the opening statement, I begin with just a single picture of a bumper with a giant Tootsie Roll on it, and just say, "This guy was so drunk right over here, walk over the table. He did this to his own car, wait for it, in front of the cops."
Yes, in front of the cops. This was the decision-making that was involved.
And then you just sit down and say, "Hey, I'll be back later to get the guilty. Tip your waiters."
Yeah, exactly.
Bye-bye.
It's like, this is the only thing I have to say. Here it is. This is what he did. Yeah. And then you can just ask the jury, when was the last time you were so inebriated you not only had to defecate in public,
I'm afraid
but
to
you
see
did
a
it in front
hand
of
go
officers.
up. I don't know. There's some jurors out there that make it on where someone raises their hand and looks around. They're like, "Oh no, I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question."
Oh, that was Tuesday. I mean, no, not me.
No, I thought you were asking something else.
I need to go to the bathroom. That's why I'm raising my hand.
I have a horrible story about that.
Oh no! Speaking of horrible stories, well, that is the end of today's horrible stories with You Choose the News. Yes, the first one in the new year, of course. George is our perennial winner, and I'm just a giant loser. We will have a sponsor for you tomorrow, but this morning was a little crazy, and I could not return the email. And if I can't return the email to sponsor, then the check doesn't clear, and nobody wants that.
No,
not at all. All righty, sir. Back to you.
Listen, thank you, Billy. That's gotten us kicked off to 2023 the way that we needed to. So now we are firmly in the grasp of the new year, as opposed to longing for the days of yesteryear. We're going to cut away for a break. We'll come back. We'll have a few minutes. Let me tell you what's going to happen in the 7 o'clock hour. I don't know, by the way, if you've been paying attention, but turns out the Republicans in Washington, D.C. have had a very boring vote for speaker. Everything went exactly as planned. No, that's not it at all. It has become something of a spectacle. There are issues here that are keeping this thing from wrapping up. And frankly, until they wrap up, it holds the rest of the Congress a bit hostage. Like nothing else can happen till they get this box checked. 7 o'clock hour, we're going to be joined by the current chair of the GOP. We'll talk a little bit of state and national politics with her. Her name's Kristi Burton Brown. And then is Priscilla coming in or something like that? She doesn't have school. So maybe, if I'm Priscilla, I don't drive here if I'm not on my way to school. And then in the 8 o'clock hour, folks, write this one down in ink on your palm. Congresswoman Lauren Boebert will be joining us right here on the radio. We'll have a conversation. She is one of the votes against Speaker McCarthy at the moment. We'll have a great conversation about that. They're going to be in the throes of another vote right now. I don't know if you paid attention, but Donald Trump has just come out and thrown his support behind Speaker McCarthy. Again, that was an open question as of yesterday. We'll talk about all that stuff as we get through the show. And then, of course, you at 303-696-1971. It's George Brauchler on The George Show, 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes, all in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
George Brauchler, right back with you here on 710 KNUS. Heard from our buddy Priscilla Ron. She's actually speaking at the Arapahoe County breakfast this morning, I think with our other friend of the show, City Councilman from Aurora, Dustin Zvonek. I think he's also speaking out there. We, of course, are on the radio here. We have not yet discussed our lids for the day, and in the couple minutes we have left, Billy?
Yes, today, I am wearing a Mercedes-Benz Penske hat. This I actually inherited from my father, but this commemorates their 1994 Indianapolis 500 win when the Mercedes-Benz Penske team came in first. So that's what I'm wearing today, Mercedes-Benz Penske from 1994. What do you have on? You got a big W. Is that for winner?
It should be a winner. It is Washington Nationals. It was a game that when I went out to visit Amanda, I'm not a Washington Nationals fan, although I loved the World Series that they won. I mean, that was a big deal to me because, of course, when you hate the opposing team, it's like the enemy of my enemy thing. And scored some sweet seats to one of the Nationals games. And Amanda and I have done this pretty much every city we've been to. And I invited my buddy who's also been on the show, Colonel Dale, who lives out there in Northern Virginia. And we all went in to watch a great game. And I thought, you know what? I'm buying a commemorative hat every place.
Nice.
So I own a couple different hats from a couple different stadiums. Graham's big pitch for Dad is, can we pretty please figure out a way to get to all the ballparks in America? And as much as I want to say, yep, easy to do, I can't imagine how to pull that off short of us, Billy. We're going to have a really super successful 2023 here on the radio for us to, and then maybe we do remotes at that point. Maybe it's just a series. And I don't want Kelly to be down with that.
We need to do this as a George and his son go across America, and we sell sponsorships, and we make this an entire thing. You check in with Stefan in the afternoon, and you do the show here remotely, and you talk about the city, and we get whatever town's mayor's on.
I still think there's a way to do this with the YouTube, where it's like we body cam each of us for the day, and it's just whatever you're doing, blurred out for obvious parts, but otherwise we do it. Listen, we're not there yet, but when we come back, we're going to be joined by KBB, of course, Priscilla at the Arapahoe County Breakfast, and then Lauren Boebert at 8 o'clock. Until then, you're listening to me on The George Show, 710 KNUS. Sweet mother of goodness. That was as seamless bumper music, I think, as we've ever had right here on The George Show on 710 KNUS. We're going to go right to the VIP line and be joined by Kristi Burton Brown. She is the, and now I have to say, current chair of the GOP, because she has made the decision, I think a wise decision, if only for her family's sanity, to take a step back from running the show and get back into the business of the policy stuff that she loves so much. Kristi, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, George. That was good music.
Yeah, it was. It's hard to make a record skip when you don't play records anymore, but somehow we've done it. Let's get up to date on a couple things. One, let me focus in on the job that you have now and those who want it. Do you know of a list of people who have formally announced their interest in taking over where you're leaving off?
I do, because they actually have to let us know, because
it can't be secret.
I run that election.
Is there a floor nomination process? Like, could someone stand up and yell, "I nominate blah, blah, blah"?
No.
Okay.
So we actually have rules in place, and that rules committee has yet to finalize their rules. But usually there's a certain number of days prior to the election that you have to have registered that you are running.
And how many folks do we have so far, and who are they?
Except one so far. We have Casper Stockham.
Do it in alphabetical order. Who?
Only Casper Stockham is the only one who's announced as of right now.
Now, what's the deadline for them to announce?
The rules committee hasn't finalized that yet, but often it'll be like a week ahead of time, 10 days ahead of time, something like that. We'll see if they do longer than that. I'll be honest with you. In my view, if you don't jump in by about January 15th, you're putting you're behind, because I jumped in around the 1st of January and I even felt a little behind. Obviously I went on to, go ahead and win. So it's possible, but you don't get in by the 15th of January. You're not doing yourself any favors.
I want to ask you, like, what other names are out there being rumored around, but I think you may be the worst person to ask, because I don't know if you feel comfortable even saying that.
I think, and I do know of one person who almost for sure will jump in, but they do want to announce it for themselves.
Yeah, I get it.
I know Greg Lopez decided not to run. He had said he was going to and decided not to. Steve Reams was heavily thinking about it, also decided not to, which is probably a good choice considering that he wanted to continue to be sheriff as well.
And to maintain his sanity. I think Steve, although some have speculated, I think he's saying he would like to keep the sanity, I think, and maybe jumping into this mosh pit, this political mosh pit at the moment. That's a tough one. Let's shift to some state politics stuff here. The governor yesterday came out and he's going to give a state of the state address. I have my own interest in knowing whether or not he'll ever mention the word crime in it, even though the crime hasn't abated. But he did come out yesterday and do the "I'm running for president" policy platform thing of, hey, everybody, the economy looks like it's really struggling now that I've been reelected. Maybe I could do something to make it easier on people. Talk about what he did and sort of how you're perceiving this and what you think of it.
Sure. Well, George, I'm guessing I know which one thing you're talking about. I thought he'd a couple things that indicated he wanted to run for president.
Oh, yeah.
So first of all, I mean, it's probably not the one you're talking about, but he decided to send a bunch of immigrants to New York, which is, a DeSantis move. So that was very interesting. And then
and a Greg Abbott move, right? Like, it's a very Texas, Florida thing. Like, look at how libertarian I am.
And of course, his argument is, well, we know Colorado's not their final destination anyway. We're just helping them along the way, getting them where they want to go. Like, yeah, right, buddy. You go interview them all and ask them where they want to be.
All the way to Canada.
So I know, right? And then the second one, he did talk about asking for money in the state budget to lower people's property taxes. But here's the kicker, I think. He currently does not have plans to make it permanent. And due to the repeal of Gallagher, I think that's going to be a huge key in Colorado if we actually want to save families money, if we actually want working families to be able to afford a house in Colorado, if we have to make lowering of property taxes permanent. And I think in addition to that, he hinted at this but didn't give any details, that he thinks it should be possible for people who've paid off their home to not be priced out of their home due to the taxes they have to pay. Like, shocker, think of that. Republicans have talked about both of these things for a long, long time in Colorado. Glad to see him jump on board. But he obviously has to provide details on the second one. And I think the first one isn't going to be overwhelmingly effective if he doesn't make it permanent.
I think the idea that we're going to, after, and I want to look this up to make sure it's true, after he came out and supported blowing up Gallagher, which in some ways was a big protection for residential property owners, to then come out and say, it looks like maybe a lot of the decisions we've made, including to raise quote unquote fees and taxes and other things, may be working a negative for most of the middle class working families out there.
Think of that.
I know, it's amazing. Yeah. No one saw that coming. I will now step up and ask that we temporarily suspend things, because to do it permanently, one, would probably alienate the far left, who he needs for some of this. And of course, they want to tax the hell out of us all the time. But I'm just intrigued by the fact that he escapes any political accountability for just the obvious things like, let's suspend the gas tax until the election is over. Nope, I'm not going to make that permanent. That can be visited on middle-class people. And then the property taxes, let's temporarily suspend or at least give some relief to tax. And it's not going to be directed in some sort of earned basis. It will be the way they draft it, I'm sure, will work its way towards some politically disadvantaged group or something like that.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. He's very fuzzy on the details, which is interesting because we all know, he is smart. And to be fuzzy on the details about something that's been very clear as a need here in Colorado ever since property taxes were, we know they're going up. It's very interesting that he hasn't ironed out all those details.
Yeah, but
he's had so long to do so.
He got the earned media he needed, right? Polis comes out and asks for tax relief for. That's it. Score, touchdown. That's going to show up in a future political ad. But he just needs to put that stuff out there, and the media do not hold him accountable by saying Polis provides factless, non-specific suggestion for blah blah blah. That would be a real tie. They're not going to do that.
They're not. And what's interesting, George, is you probably know this, and I know this from having dealt with the media a lot. A lot of them are very frustrated by the governor and how he just weasels his way out of, all the questions they ask at press conferences. When they have interviews with him, he won't give them solid answers. That's the opinion of a lot of media in the state, and yet they let him get away with it. They'll talk to me and other people about how frustrated they are, and I can tell by how they say it, they actually mean it. But okay, what do you do to hold him accountable for his non-answers? You don't report he doesn't answer.
No, they don't.
You don't push him hard. You're just like, oh, he'll never answer us. Oh no. Come on, guys.
Kristi, let's shift gears to the national level. There's going to be a vote here at the national level for the Republican Party about chair. There are 3 folks that I think are candidates to fill in the role that is currently being held by who's our party chair? And it just escapes me. Ron McDaniel. Good Lord. I'm like, McDaniel. And I was about to say.
Need more coffee, George.
Yeah, that's it. It actually takes some stuff out of the coffee. But there are 2 other folks running too. Do you, by the time this thing happens, are you going to have a say, a vote, or any influence over that process?
Yeah, I'll get a vote. The RNC spring meeting where we elect national officers is in January, end of January.
Have you listened to, met with, talked with each of the candidates?
2 of the 3 so far.
Who have you spoken to so far?
Rana and Harmeet Dillon.
And who's the third?
Mike Lindell says he's running, but I don't know that he's really making calls and emails to the chairman. And national committee men and women are also going to vote as well, but I've heard absolutely nothing from him.
Did he send you like a My Chair pillow or something like that?
No.
My hat's off to Randy Corcoran, another host on the station. He has interviewed all 3 of them, and I think you can find it on the podcast out there for Randy's show. Yeah. When have you made a decision already? Are you waiting on something? Is this like one of those things where it's like, I don't want to say?
So I'm always an advocate for, waiting for all the information before you make a final decision. I am listening to people here in Colorado. Actually, a surprising number of people have been contacting me about who they want me to vote for, the reasons for it. I've had a dialogue with some of those people. And I think there's zero reason I have to decide today or yesterday when the vote's not until January 27th. Harmeet is the one person I had a conversation with. She had been planning to have a conversation with me for a while. Finally was able to do it yesterday morning, actually. So we talked for an hour yesterday morning about a lot of details on what she wants to do. I asked her some questions that are very important to me, including whether or not she would advocate for the Republican Party keeping the pro-life plank in our platform.
Right.
So I asked pretty specific questions to people.
Can you tell us what she said?
I want some time to think about it. So she said yes, but I thought the way she got there was actually fairly interesting.
Huh.
A surprise to me. I thought it would be a hardcore, what my answer would be. Absolutely. We're keeping it on our platform.
Right.
That's fundamental to who we are. Right. Like, that's why a lot of people are Republicans. But she knows what happened in Colorado, and she actually asked me, she was like, well, I'm personally pro-life, so I would vote yes on that.
Yeah.
But she's like, are you suggesting we shouldn't? And, you're a lawyer, George, she's a lawyer, I'm a lawyer. Yeah. It's one of those lawyer things where you try and ask a question to get to the answer you want, to let it inform your own answer.
Right.
That's very much what it seemed like to me, which just surprised me. I was like, why don't you just come and straight up say what you think? And I was like, no, I think the opposite, which I was like, I shouldn't have let my own position go, but I did. We had a good conversation. I know she's been the attorney for David Daleiden, who investigated Planned Parenthood, and Kamala Harris came down on him in California.
Yeah, that's nice.
She's done some excellent work on that issue for sure. But I just found the way she approached it and emphasizing her personal pro-life views to not be the kind of answer I would have given.
How about Rana? When you've talked to Rana before, has she given an indication?
So Rana has talked to me before about not liking the fact that we have pro-choice candidates as Republicans, and how she knows that national donors want to see strong pro-life candidates come from our party. So I mean, from my dealings with her over the last couple of years, actually, she's been very strong on that issue. I do think in the end they both would come down on the right side of that issue. Probably slight differences in how they might message it. But, it was an hour-long, very detailed conversation. No reason I have to commit today when the vote's not until the 27th. So I want to not commit today and listen to more people and more plans from all three of the people running.
Speaking of not committing, and we'll stay at the national level, the Republicans in the House of Representatives have yet to commit at the appropriate level to get a Speaker of the House. That's still ongoing right now. In the 8 o'clock hour, we're going to have somebody on the radio named Lauren Boebert. She is apparently the Congresswoman from the 3rd Congressional District. Are you aware of her?
George, I am.
I think you actually helped get her elected.
Work for her a little bit.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes,
that's right.
Yes.
Now, she is one of a group, and I think it's hovered around 19 or 20-ish Republicans. I think they're all from the Freedom Caucus. I could be off, but I think they're all from the Freedom Caucus. Interestingly, Marjorie Taylor Greene, not one of them. And they have come out and voted now 3 times for somebody not Kevin McCarthy for Speaker. What do you think is going on out there?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I obviously won't have as much insight into it as Lauren will, being part of it herself. But I do think, some of them, I think 5 of them, call themselves the Never Kevin Caucus. I think that's actually accurate. I think that's their goal. They want anyone but Kevin McCarthy to be the Speaker. We'll see what happens. I think when you take 3 successive votes and the only way the votes shift is 1 more against McCarthy, certainly doesn't put him in a good spot. I'll be honest with you, I tend to think if you're going to go after someone, you better have a solid plan in what your end game is. And I'm not the type of person where my end game would be anyone but X. I think you should have a person you are actually advocating for and a person who's running a real campaign to be Speaker. I don't see that going on. However, I'm not privy to all the details, and maybe Lauren will come on and tell you, that they have exactly that kind of a plan and exactly a person who they're pushing. But here's the other thing, George, I think is interesting. How the 2 sides are talking about the deal behind closed doors that was never made. And I think there's things that aren't being fully disclosed, as is common in politics and unfortunate, by either side that's leaking out. So McCarthy wants everyone to think, hey, this is all about them not getting amnesty for what they're doing to me, and they're demanding the chairmanship of multiple committees, and they're saying they're okay with Hakeem Jeffries being the Speaker. That's what he's saying. And then, of course,
Hakeem Jeffries is saying that these folks are okay with him being Speaker?
No, McCarthy is saying that Matt Gaetz has told him that he is okay with Hakeem Jeffries being Speaker because we'll go fight him. I know. I think I cannot stand Matt Gaetz. I'll be straight up honest with you. I think Matt Gaetz is one of the most terrible people in Congress, period. I do not think everyone in that group, like I've never said that about Lauren Boebert. Love her. She's a friend. I appreciate what she does. But I cannot stand Matt Gaetz. I think he's absolutely just let me.
Have you
fail me to describe him?
Have you heard of an alternative to Kevin that is not only attractive to the 20, because they voted, some voted for Biggs, some voted for Jordan, some voted for Scalise over the period of these 3 votes. Are any one of those people legitimate contenders to become speaker?
I've heard noise coming from DC from some people I know up there that Scalise may end up being it if McCarthy really can't get the votes down. So
if you have 5 never Keviners, that's it, because he can only lose 4, right? It's a 222. He needs 218. He needs 218.
Well, you're right. For some reason, I thought I could lose 5, but I think you must be right that it must be. Yeah, that might be too many. And I think those 5. I don't see those 5 changing. Now, granted, they say no. It's not just the chairmanships and the amnesty, which is funny that they use that word. That we actually want him to agree to like a debt limit. We want him to agree on border things. We want him to bring certain bills to the floor. And as Laura herself says, bring real change to Washington, D.C. and clean up the swamp. Like, if that's what they're really trying to do, and as I said, there's always 2 sides to it, I think some of those goals are what we all want. But knowing how sometimes some of those Congress people, specifically Matt Gaetz, operate, I am quite convinced they did walk into his office and demand chairmanships and demand protection from themselves and no retaliation.
Protection for what?
It's probably a mix. Well, so McCarthy's team, isn't going to just let this slide. And I think, how politics is, how DC is. You go after someone, well, they're going to go after you. And people like Congresswoman Boebert, she needs CLF, which McCarthy runs, Congressional Leadership Fund. He needs their money in her race in 2024. So I think those kind of things are in danger. Credit to her or anyone else who doesn't do what they do just to get money. If you do what you do and know you're risking losing investment in your race, you're doing it because you believe in it. So whether it's right or wrong, or whether it's how I would strategically approach it, and honestly, it's not. I give very high credit to someone who puts to the side their own monetary interest and their own reelection interest and says, I believe this is right, I'm going to go do it.
Kristi Burton Brown, chair of the Colorado GOP, given the composition of our state and how it's performed at the ballot, at least through the last 3 election cycles, what message do you think is being received by this right now? We're a day into a Congress that isn't even sworn in yet.
I mean, honestly, I think it makes Republicans look chaotic. And here's the thing that I think is interesting, George. If the goal is to say, we don't think Kevin McCarthy should be the speaker, we think for XYZ reasons, he has no place leading our caucus. They got the concession that they wanted as far as a very small handful of members, and it's down to 5, can ask for a motion to vacate the chair, which means the speaker may lose his position. That happens too many times. It happened to Boehner. He resigned.
Yeah.
He wasn't voted out, but he just resigned because it creates a big mess. If you really want someone out as speaker, why don't you take that concession? And then 6 months later, when they mess up, as you think they're going to do, and lean into corruption or whatever people think is going to happen, why don't you build support and bring a motion at that point? And it doesn't look like a circus. It doesn't look like Republicans are in chaos. It looks like we are strategic and our moves are well thought out, and it still leads to the ultimate goal, which I assume they have, which is, never Kevin.
Who in the world would want that damn job, Kristi? I mean, in some ways, I'm asking you as a person who I would say, who in the world would want Kristi's job? You know what I mean? Like, I look at that and think the people that are supposed to be ideologically aligned with you, closer than anybody else, the people that are supposed to be supportive of you, and you're supposed to be rowing the same direction, towards the same general, if not even some specific goals. These are the people who have the knives out for you. It's like, why do I want to do this?
I think, and you're right. Yeah, I have a job that people say, it's the worst job in politics. I disagree. I've absolutely loved every minute of it. If I could go back 2 years, I'd do it again. And I think it's because of what you're working towards, what you're fighting for. And there's always still, at least in my position, and Speaker of the House is way above what I do, there are so many more good people you get to work with and build relationships with than there are the noisy, rude people. and I think that of life in general, there's always more good people than bad people. There's always more good in the world because God created it and he put good here and he put good in people's hearts. Because I think if you're the Speaker of the House, your goal and why you want to do it, you want to fight for good legislation. In this session, you want to say no to as many terrible Democrat policies. And you think you're the best leader who can work the rules and make negotiations and get it done.
Kristi,
it takes some level of confidence and goals, I guess. I don't know.
I want to believe that, but I got to say, if it's not Kevin McCarthy, and maybe it won't be, I don't see a Steve Scalise saying, even, behind the scenes, can't wait to do it. I mean, that has to be the least attractive job in the world right now. And for the Dems, and of course, they have to keep showing up for this. I'm sure they're going to bring popcorn on the floor. They're going to keep showing up for this dumpster fire of a leadership election thing. One, because their absence lowers the threshold that McCarthy would need to win. So they want to make this as painful as possible. But if you're anyone else in the Republican coalition, you've got to be thinking, how, even if I win, how in the hell am I going to manage this group? These aren't cats. These are cats on meth lit on fire, right? How in the world are you ever going to get anything done?
That's a great question. I think there's people out there that think that'd be a fun challenge. I, for one, like in the jobs I take on, I prefer challenges. I don't mind if it's hard. And, this is another level of hard, next level, like, can you go to Pluto instead of can you go to Mars? It's definitely a next level thing. But I don't know. I think there's some people that have, set out to go do it. I agree with you. I can't think of who they are, because if someone really, really wanted this, why didn't they mount a significant campaign against McCarthy to begin with? Sure, there's strategic reasons there, but still doesn't look like anyone's jumping down, raising their hand saying, pick me, pick me. So, we'll figure it out. I do think, George, it'll be interesting to see if any of the Democrats do start not showing up, though, because there's a handful of them that are soft. They tend to be good at whipping their caucus, but they probably all will be there.
Yeah.
Are there a couple who are just going to get tired of it? And, if they vote by proxy, they like to go home. I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough times. Listen, Kristi, I hope you're willing to come back and share with us what you're going to do, or at least what you did do at that big national meeting in terms of the Republican National Committee person. And happy 2023 to you.
You too, George. Thanks so much.
Talk with you soon. Hey, that's Kristi Burton Brown, chair of the state GOP for now. And then Priscilla, of course, who we normally have on at the same time. She is speaking at the Arapahoe County Republican Breakfast. That's a Myron Spanier production. Awesome thing out there at Maggiano's if you've never been. Hey, we're going to cut away for a break. We're going to come back. I'm going to try to get a special guest on the phone here. A little point of personal privilege. Stick around. It's George Brauchler on The George Show, 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
George Brauchler right back with you on 710 KNUS. Going to go right back to the VIP line because it's someone I haven't spoken to in, a couple days. She promised to come into the studio before she left. Turns out, even at age 20, can't live up to those simple commitments. But she's on with us now from across the planet Earth, literally across the planet Earth. Amanda, how are you?
I'm good. You make me sound bad. I had a lot going on.
Yeah, I understand. That didn't keep you from initially throughout this entire thing saying while you were home, yep, I'm going to come in. Yep, I'm going to, how about this day? How about that day? How about this day? And I teased the listeners with it. What's that?
I know, I wanted to. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I understand. Tell folks where you're at right now.
I'm sitting at a desk right now in my residence hall in Singapore.
What's the name of the school out there?
Nanyang Technological University.
Yeah, that's right. And listen,
I don't know how to pronounce it yet.
Pretty awesome. This is your semester abroad, at least one of two that you have to do for the degree that you're going to get. I think it's international affairs or something. Is that right?
Yeah, I am in econ.
And econ, because your dad's undergrad was also in econ. Nonetheless, the trip out there was like nothing I've ever done before, let alone that you've done before. You flew super smartly out of Denver to San Francisco early, and that was Mom's great suggestion, and it turned out to be gold. Now, you've got a couple other buddies from George Washington University in D.C. who are going to be in this program. They were going to be on the later flight that you got bumped up. Did they make it?
No, Anna's on her flight right now.
I thought you said there wasn't going to be another one until Thursday.
Somehow she found a seat open on one of them.
Wow.
I don't know.
Now that flight is ridiculous because in addition to the time change, it adds up to like you're traveling into the future. How long were you on that plane?
17 hours and some change.
It's just too hard to imagine. Like I've flown to the Middle East for obvious reasons and Europe. I've gone to Korea, been to Tokyo, been to Malaysia, all that. Nothing quite like that because it was all broken up into legs. I've never gone from the coast of the United States into Singapore directly, which is very close to Malaysia. That is a crazy amount of time. How did you pass the time? 17 hours is a lot.
Well, I slept for a good 10, thankfully, because I had no one next to me in these two seats. So I had the entire row to myself. It was lovely.
That's awesome. You said the other dude across the aisle from you had a similar situation. Did you two ever have that longing look and a thumbs up like we are the luckiest people on the plane?
No, because there was a woman in the aisle next to him that also had the same situation. And I think the person in front of me also had the same situation.
That's awesome. Boy, that's tremendous.
Yeah.
They also have a ton of media on there. Did you spend time watching TV and movies and stuff?
No, not really. But the screens on the back of the chairs were cool. They were like little iPads.
Mm-hmm. Tell folks about your experience, because this is the first time you and I have spoken since I waved goodbye to you at DIA a couple days ago. Tell me and thank you for yawning right into the phone.
It's 10:30 here.
I know it's 10:30 there, but not in your head. You just got there. Like it's still 7:30 in the morning, which you'd probably be asleep anyway. But tell me, what's the experience like so far? Like when you got out of the airport and mercifully you got your bag, what was it like? I mean, what does it seem remarkably similar, different?
Well, it was so humid when we landed that coming in, like right when we landed and then we're coasting along till we get to our gate, I couldn't see out my window because it was fogged up because it was so humid.
Wow. What's the temperature like there?
I think it was like 81 all day today and humid, like sweating buckets humid.
What you also described the residence hall that you're in, and of course you brought luggage that's supposed to last you for 4 months. I know you're going to do laundry and stuff, but talk about the experience of getting checked into your room.
Well, I have one bag. I got my key at one building, and so we had to hike from where our little Uber, that's not an Uber, it's whatever the brand they have here is, called a Grab car, where a car dropped us off to the hall to get our key, and then we got our keys. And then I went to go find my room, and I'm on the 5th floor. And I was like, okay, no problem. And I'm hiking through, because these residence halls are like Residence Hall 8, Residence Hall 9, but they're all made up of different blocks, which are like different clumps of buildings. And so I'm walking past like 44, 45, and I'm 47, and I can't find the road to where 47 goes up. And it's not a road, you zigzag through.
Oh my good God.
45 and 46.
And you've got your luggage in tow.
Yeah, and I'm figuring this out with my luggage, and it's all built on a hill too, so it's all different levels of stairs getting you up this hill progressively. So to even get to floor 1 of my building, you have to go up like 3 levels of stairs from the ground.
What? And you're on what level?
5.
Yikes! And so no elevator.
Yeah. No elevator.
Instantly, Trey would hate that, as you know. I mean, we were talking about accessibility.
Yeah,
Trey would hate it.
Yeah. I wonder if it's just this part of the campus, because like the art building and stuff that they have is gorgeous. It's this huge, super modern building, and then there's like grass up the side of it with like stairs. It's so pretty. But there's like really, really modern parts, and then also this.
And tell folks, in Singapore, the main language is Chinese.
It's English.
See, there you go. It's English. I appreciate you continuing to resist the urge to yawn after your 10 hours of napping on that flight. Tell us about what's different about it out there too. I want to know, like at one point I had mentioned to listeners about this air conditioning credits thing. What's that all about?
Oh yeah, it's super energy conservative here. Like all of the outlets have switches on them, so you have to turn the switch on and then turn it off once you're done using the outlet. I'm sitting in a room right now that's like the study room in our residence hall, and there's no air conditioning going. I have to manually do it. And in my room, we have a fan, like just a normal ceiling fan.
Yeah.
But we also have an air conditioning unit. But when you check in, you're given your key to your room, and then your mailbox key and your air conditioning card. And it's like a gift card that you have to reload at like 7-Eleven or the King Super.
Oh my God.
Or like whatever the grocery store they have is here. And you pay for credits for how many hours you want the air conditioning. So you stick your card in a little box on the wall, and based on how many hours you paid for, the air conditioner will run for that long.
That's insane. Now you have a roommate. Have you met her, I hope, yet?
No, I haven't, but all of her stuff is there. So I don't know where she's been for the past, because I've been here since noon, so 10 hours.
How what does she have in her luggage and stuff? Did you go through it?
No,
I'm
all
kidding.
Her stuff is like unpacked. I know.
I'm totally kidding. You know, the minute you start going through her stuff, she comes back, so maybe you give it a shot.
Right, just coax her back karmically.
Yeah, hopefully she's not going to go missing and this becomes a Netflix series or something like that, like Crazy Weekend or something. When does school start?
January 9th, I think.
Oh, so what are you going to do in the days between now and then?
Well, our orientation was supposed to be the 5th, but they moved it to the 6th, like a month ago. So I guess tomorrow's another free day, and then the 6th is our orientation. And they have there's a bunch of check-in things I have to do. Like I still have to do a final thing to get my student visa, like a confirmation appointment, and get my vaccine.
Oh yeah, how was customs? Did they run you through the ringer, ask you a bunch of questions?
No, it's super easy. It lasted like 5 minutes.
That's great. And so what's tomorrow look like then? I mean, you're right now in the dark on the other side of the planet in a town you've never been to before. What's next?
Mm-hmm. I need to reload. They also give us our student card, which works as this cash card. So a bunch of places don't take credit cards. They only take cash for this cash card. So I have to figure out how to put money onto the cash card so that I can go pay for stuff. A bunch of places on campus at least. But the card also pays for, you can pay to reload your air conditioner card with it. And it works as your public transit card. So you can pay for public transit too. But
you can't use your credit card to load the other card?
No, there's an app that you can use to reload it, but the app only lets you use a Singapore credit card or a Malaysia credit card, which obviously I don't need to do.
What? So you're going to have to go get a Singapore credit card?
No, I have to, there's little boxes mounted on the walls and stuff that you can reload it with, but I have to find one that works because the one downstairs doesn't work.
And how long are you going to be out there? When do you come home for at least the short term?
May 8th.
That's a long, long time, Amanda, to be gone. And then, of course, as you know, your mom's coming out over kids' spring break here. But before that, Big Daddy got the green light to hook up with you in Vietnam. Now, the logistics of that sound challenging to me from over here, but maybe you could figure out some stuff out there. You've got days. You could just plan the trip with your days, right?
Right. That's definitely, I'm not adjusting to any new circumstances whatsoever.
Thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. Listen, as things develop, I want to have you on. I just need to know things like how safe it is. Now, remember, I told listeners this, you can't bring chewing gum or something into the country. Is that true?
Yeah.
Like you had to declare bubble gum?
Sell chewable mints. No, you have to throw it away. The supermarkets sell chewable mints and stuff, but no one sells gum, obviously.
It's funny to me that it's like weed was, 20 years ago. Like, hey, psst, come on over here. Want some Trident? You know what I mean? Like stuff that they made in their bathroom or something like that. Someone's got the precursors to gum and they're making gum and handing it out. And they're like, it's contraband. But I need you to continue to call. One, I want to hear your voice, but two, I just need to know what it's like over there and how it's different. Like the perception of America, the perception of the world events. You're now in Southeast Asia. China is a stone's throw away. I mean, for us out here, it feels like it's the other side of the planet because it is, but you're on the other side of the planet. I mean, it is a stone throw away. And then to the extent that you get to go out there and do things like hit Kuala Lumpur or any other parts of the Southeast Asian island chains, I just need to know that stuff too. One, I'm worried. I'm your dad,
Yeah, I'll be fine. I'll figure it out. And if not, someone will interview you for a documentary that they're making on TLC about me.
That's horrible. That's true, but that's horrible.
At least you get your 15 minutes.
I think I'd rather have my daughter most of the days. So let's keep that going. Hey, listen, Amanda, I'm really proud of you. Mom and I are just think you're the best, and you're the best thing that we've done. And I miss you.
You have 3 other kids.
Yeah, but they don't listen to the show.
That's true.
And by the way, I tell them the exact same thing individually. So there it is.
Wow.
You'll hear it too. Graham will listen to this and go, wait a minute, you told me that. I'll be like, that's right. I tell each of you you're my favorite. And I always pick out another one that's, the kids all think you're the worst.
Wow.
That's right. It really says it'll make reading the will that much more fun. I'm not planning on leaving the planet, by the way, for several months. So listen, I will plan on seeing you either in Singapore or Vietnam here in a couple months, but I want to continue to talk with you. Let us know how things are progressing, okay?
Yeah, sounds good.
All
Send
right.
me money if you want me to talk to you.
Apparently, I'll have to use a Singapore credit card, which I don't have access to. So I love you. Keep doing great things, okay?
I love you too.
All right.
Good night.
Good night. It is 10:44 p.m. out there, Singapore time. That was my daughter, Amanda. Thank you for suffering through that. But as you know, one of the prices to listening to the George Show here on 710 KNUS is you get exposed to my kids and the stuff that's going on, because at least the ones that want to be on the radio. And I'm still working on Trey, but he has really dug his heels in. But Amanda's been on for years now with me. And I just, it's a little nerve wracking for Dad to have her in a place where I can't get to her for quite literally, if the fastest possible, over a day. That's tough by airline. But thanks for sticking with us. Kay, everybody else on hold from our other conversation, we'll get to you right after this. And then in the 8 o'clock hour, hopeful of getting on Lauren Boebert to talk us through what is going on in Washington, D.C. It's George Brauchler on The George Show, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler right back with you here, 710 KNUS. From one VIP to another, it's that time of the show where we get to be made smarter by a voice we just haven't heard through the holidays and we've missed. Welcome to 2023, Gabe from Alpine Planning.
George, I thought I was your favorite. I thought I was the best.
Honestly, several listeners have texted in. You keep telling me I'm your favorite, and they said, "Do you say that to everybody?" And I said, and I know you're listening, so please take this tongue in cheek. I said, I don't say it to Joe from Arvada. But Joe, I do love you. You're just my second favorite.
You'd never make it in Congress because you're always flip-flopping to just please whoever's in front of you.
I'm a politician. I didn't want to be growing up. I didn't think I would be, but the minute you run for an elected office, you can't undo it, right? It's not like I used to be a politician. No, you've done it, right? Like you only get to be a political virgin until you're not, and then it's over.
Yeah, great, George. Well, for the record, I missed you too, and I hope you had a great holiday and Happy New Year to you and your family.
How many times have you been up skiing so far, my man?
I don't want to say because if Pete's listening, then I'm gonna get some flack.
Really?
But it's in the double digits.
Oh, come on, dude, come on. What's the? Let's just shift to the economy because you're just gonna break my heart too. I've been up exactly 0 times if I'm rounding up.
Well, starting off this morning in the green, sir. I currently have the Dow Jones up 62. NASDAQ is up 54 and the S&P is up 17. So about 0.5% on those indices. Really trying to get the year started here. We are technically into earnings season. The meat of it won't start for another week or 10 days or so. But I think this is, Brian, Amy, and I's thesis going into the first quarter. We do feel that it is going to be sort of a bumpy ride as companies sort of change their perspective,
for how long,
their outlook for the rest of the year. But sort of as we go through the first couple quarters, I think this will finally provide the Fed some data and some opportunity to potentially slow down or stop the rate hikes potentially, so we can sort of get to a terminal value and know sort of where we stand from the economy. As you know, there's been quite a few layoffs, especially in the tech space. Salesforce just announced a 10% layoff reduction that they will implement here coming up. So a lot of things to look at from the economic side going into 2023, sir. Just hoping it's a better year than 2022.
When you look at what's coming out today, I saw in the Wall Street Journal this morning, there are some things going to be reported. What are you looking for?
So you do have the PMI coming out. You also have a few companies reporting. I don't think there's a whole lot today that's going to be a huge catalyst as far as market movements. But sort of as we go through the meat of earnings season and really the outlook and the guidance from some of these companies, I think that's what's going to be the biggest thing going into February.
You said it's going to be bumpy a little bit. Do you think it's going to be bumpy all of 2023? Or do you think it's just the initial quarter? I mean, can we get to some sort of stability, even if that stability isn't at the level we want it to be yet?
If you were forcing an answer out of me, I would say Q1, potentially going into Q2, you will see some volatility. Our optimism for the next 12 to 18 months is actually pretty high. I think that's when you will see us get back to levels we were at the start of 2022. But obviously there's a lot of uncertainty, not only in the political realm, but you saw some geopolitical risk and supply chain and COVID in China. So there's a lot of things at play here. But if you had to force me to an answer, I would say through the first quarter, but hopefully by the end of the year, we'll see green numbers.
Now, I know that with all these variables and human nature being what it is and a bit unpredictable of sorts, precision is tough. But when is the exact moment I should go big back into the market? No, I'm kidding.
I'll dust off my crystal balls. But to that point, I do think this year is a great opportunity for investors that do have some cash on the sidelines that are starting to invest. I think right now is a great opportunity to dollar cost average into the market over the next 12 months. And so if you are in a position with whether it be in your 401k, I know a lot of people have switched their allocations to invest in more cash bonds. I would say right now, if you have the opportunity to invest, just dripping in over the next 12 months, you're going to be happy you did here, in the next 3 or 4 years. So if you have some listeners that need some help with that, give Brian, Amy, myself a call. We can definitely sit down.
Gabe, at some point, I'd love to have that conversation with you about the Hamlin thing and Monday Night Football and your reaction, but we're out of time this time. Alpine Planning Group is a comprehensive financial planning firm committed to improving your long-term, that's the key, long-term financial success. Investing, as always, it's a matter of trust, and they're prepared to earn yours. Call them today at 303-843-0918. Gabe, great to hear you again.
You be well, sir. We'll talk to you next week.
Happy New Year.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Woodbury Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC and registered investment advisor. Alpine Planning Group and Woodbury Financial Services, Inc. are not affiliated entities. 14 West Dry Creek Circle, Littleton, Colorado, 80120.
Now, listen, that does it for our number dose. I believe that's French or something for 2. When we come back, hoping to be joined by Congresswoman Lauren Boebert. She is playing a significant role right now in what's going on in D.C. under the dome with the speakership. We'll talk to her about it. Text me your questions for her. George Brauchler, George Show, 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes, all in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
George Brauchler right back with you here on the Hump Day Show. First one of 2023. Hour 3 of 4. Charlie Kirk at 10. Prager, the dentist guy, at 11. And then, of course, Gorka at 1 o'clock. We go live and local with Deb's show, but I think it's either Jimmy S. or Johnny C. covering for Deb today. I think she's getting to spend some time in the mountains with her family. And then Stefan at 4 to 7. I had primed the pump for Congresswoman Lauren Boebert. She's still set to come on, sent me a text just a couple minutes ago that says, hey, things are fluid here. I need 20 minutes. Now, I'm hopeful that that's real 20 minutes, not Congress 20 minutes. But, you know, it wouldn't shock me if the wheels come off the bus in terms of our scheduling, because she's in the eye of the storm. That's why we want to have her on to discuss what is going on right now under the big dome there in Washington, D.C., right down the mall from the Washington Monument, frankly. And Lauren is, we could do that, Billy, you're right. Lauren is one of the votes so far 3 times in a row against Kevin McCarthy becoming Speaker of the House. The math is pretty easy because the Republicans only have 222 seats and Kevin McCarthy needs 218. You can do the math, got to have more than 50% of the 435 member body that show up. 222 minus 218 is 4. Well, there's been 20 that have voted against Kevin on successive votes. Lauren's been one of them. And we're going to talk about, look, what's the goal here? What's the end? First off, what's the objection to Kevin? What's the end goal? How are we going to get there? And how does she see this playing out? And I've had some people, and I've asked you to text me and ask me to, ask her some questions. I'll put on the ones that make the most sense given the conversation that we have. Now, we have some inkling of what's going on because Congresswoman Boebert spoke with somebody named Brett Baer. He's a big-time dude, former Olympic wrestler. He's on Fox News, pretty solid news guy. And she made some statements to her. Kay, I'm going to get to you right after I play these because I want to set the stage for this. And you can call in too and have a conversation with us about things you want to know about from Congresswoman Boebert and this whole thing that's going on, because honestly, Congress cannot move forward and do a single policy, investigative related, a scrutiny, oversight, whatever you want Congress to do, can't do it until this piece gets finalized. We're in day 2 of it. Here's something that Lauren said on Brett's show.
The bottom line is unity in the Republican Party. We have been in negotiations with Kevin McCarthy since the summer. Unfortunately, in the summer when those negotiations began, we were not taken seriously because our votes didn't seem to matter as much as they do in this slim majority now. We have had increased conversations, and I have been working for months behind the scenes to create unity. Just last night, 2 colleagues and myself walked into Kevin McCarthy's office and presented him a very common sense proposal, a deal that got him 218 votes, the gavel on the first ballot. And he smugly rejected that. And it was very common sense things like putting forward a border security bill, putting forward a term limits bill, having a measure in place to where any member of Congress who offers an amendment to reduce the federal debt, well, that's made in order. And there were so many other things that were common sense, and even requests that he had made of us that we presented to him. And right now it is seeming very difficult for Kevin McCarthy to come back around and pick up those votes that I had in hand for him last night.
That's interesting. That was yesterday. That was Congresswoman Boebert. I presume that right now she is either on the floor or just outside the floor doing these negotiations as the House reconvenes. As you know, the Democrats completely unified here. They love this spectacle. They love the optics of this. Nancy Pelosi, of course, no longer in leadership, but Hakeem Jeffries from New York, their unanimous vote, time in and time out. Dude isn't going to become speaker unless Republicans defect or enough Republicans bail on showing up that they lower the threshold to get, and that's the risk, right? Because it's 50%, more than 50% of all the attending voting members of Congress. And so let's say 20 Democrats stop showing up, Kevin McCarthy becomes the speaker, boom, because he's got the votes to do it. Same thing on the Republican side. If they bail at big enough numbers, and it doesn't take many, Hakeem Jeffries could be the Speaker of the House. Now, I don't expect any of those things to happen, but, in Washington, D.C. these days, craziness. Now, we've had a caller on the line here for some time, and I want to honor her patience on this. Kay, you're on 710 KNUS. You have some thoughts about the Kevin McCarthy, Lauren Boebert stuff?
I have a million thoughts. So, well, first of all, I love to hear Amanda.
Thank you.
But her demanding, term limits and border security, the House can pass those things, but they're not going to go through the Senate. Does not she know that? When we won the House, I was so excited because, I thought, well, now maybe, we'll get along and not be fighting all the time. I'm weary of all. It just looks ridiculous to me how they can't get along. I cannot believe it. I'm so disappointed in her. Does she not know that it won't pass through the Senate? Why is she demanding these things? That's my big question.
I am supportive of those things that she's brought up. I can't imagine anybody listening to the show that doesn't think, yeah, Congress needs term limits, and yeah, I want there to be a focus on border security and all that. I agree with you that the likelihood of any of it getting even discussed in the Senate or brought to a floor vote is negligible. But to some extent, do you think that this is one of two things? And they could both exist. One is, listen, we have not done this now, cycle in and cycle out. I go back to my constituents in the 3rd Congressional District, and I tell them these are the things I believe in and I stand up for. If I don't use this opportunity to bring this issue forward to the floor, even in an ultimately failing effort, then I'm not living up to my promise to my constituents. That's one. But two, is it the idea that we got to get people on the record? We got to put Democrats on the record voting against these things so that, one, we can go after their seats in 2 years during the presidential election year of 2024. But two, we got to keep this narrative going at a place where when we finally win back the Senate, baby, this is a foregone conclusion. We know exactly what we're going to do.
Well, yes, true. Right now, she's playing with losing our republic. They can't resolve this. That's that important. It could be no speaker, and then we'd be like screwed for the next 2 years. And I think we're so weak now. I don't think we got it in us to go like this for 2 more years. Well, they're wrecking us with debt.
I wonder if, when you say we can't last this 2 years, I think you're probably talking broader America. I just don't even know if the House Republicans, if this is some sort of a sign of what's to come over the next 2 years. I mean, it was difficult for Pelosi to manage a similarly tight margin, but you got to give her credit. She did. They figured out a way to get votes on bills that the squad and the other far left wingnuts in their caucus oppose. They figured out a way to bring them together and get these votes. We can't even figure out yet how to find someone to be the next Nancy Pelosi for our party, the Speaker of the House. How in the world are we ever going to bring forward legislation?
Right. Exactly.
Kay, who do you think ends up as Speaker after all this? Does Kevin weather this storm and people start fading away and he just ends up being the last man standing who has a shot? I mean, it's not like the guy has 10 votes. Dude's got over 200 votes. He just needs more than that.
Yeah, see, I do not know why they dislike him so much, but I was listening to Captain America last night, and they said they can get anybody. They need to do something. They need to get something. We can't let this go unresolved and just keep fighting. It's just, I'm weary of all the fighting in there. It just looks so bad to me.
Kay,
I know they have to.
Do you have a favorite?
Well, probably McCarthy, because I heard that Newt Gingrich was like, coaching him and talking to him, and I love Newt and how he thinks and everything like that. And I don't really know what McCarthy has done, but I know we have to band together, and I don't see it happening.
It's the rap on McCarthy is that he's a little too ideologically flexible, in that he's not a guy who is considered a rock rib conservative, and that he has too many times given in on issues where the Freedom Caucus and others would like him to be a little tougher, a little harder core. The thing is, he's great at getting folks elected. Like, he's great at managing that money. And I think that's what Kristi Burton Brown was referring to. He manages that Republican majority fund, whatever they call that. And each of the Congress people out there, including Congresswoman Boebert, are going to need it. if he somehow succeeds despite them, what is the risk to them since they've sort of embarrassed him in this way? I don't know the answer to that, but that's the knock on him. I do know, though, that yesterday it was an open question as to whether or not Trump would support him. In fact, Trump had even said things like, well, let's see what happens. Well, today he's come out and thrown his weight behind McCarthy and said, let's get this done. Let's just start moving forward. Do you think that would be enough?
Well, I wish Trump would. He's damaged goods. I wish he would go away. And I know that's going to tick a lot of people off. But I wouldn't, if I was running, I wouldn't really want Trump to say anything for me because I just don't think it helps. I think it hurts.
I wonder, too, if we're not setting ourselves up for just such a rocky road for 2 years that, and the media's out there, they smell blood in the water. And if they can't find the source of it, they'll just create it themselves. They're going to spend the next 2 years trying to paint the Republican House leadership as just pure chaos, as a giant dumpster fire of politics, hoping that will have an impact on the election in each of these districts across the country in 2024. I worry about that messaging, that optic.
Oh, and they're good. Oh, God, they're so good.
They're very good at what they do. Kay, thank you so much for hanging on. That's Kay. Kay's line is open, 303-696-1971. Going right back to the phone lines. Johnny, you're on 710. What do you think, Johnny?
I wonder if one of the demands is to release the videos to the public of the so-called insurrection.
The January 6th stuff?
Yeah, armless insurrection where nobody got killed on the left, everybody and people got killed on the right. I just wish they would just be able to release that. And I don't know if this McCarthy is one of the good old boys say, well, we really don't want to do that because it might upset the vote. I'm on the side of Boebert and her team, and I hope they just resolve it to get some leverage in there, and then go ahead and vote for the guy. But I don't want a weak. We can just go over here and just shake hands with the Democrats and just lick their boots and do everything they want. But when they want them to come over to our side, no, we can't do that.
Johnny, I'm not worried about anyone that would be speaker going to the Democrats and bending over backwards for them. I'm worried about having a speaker that is so weakened by this process and the factions and fractions, frankly, within the coalition, that we can't even get our own caucus together to advance legislation. I mean, if you can have 5 to 20 Republicans at any one time say, I'm not interested in this version of this bill, it's over, right? Republicans won't be able to advance anything.
Okay. Or the alternative, okay, they say this haven't happened in 100 years. And I keep hearing this word democracy. So in a democracy, I guess the majority rules and the little guys have nothing to say as in a republic. So we can keep this democracy going on, or we can say, okay, let's have this debate. And this guy, he knew this long before this came about. So it should have been resolved before, but it wasn't for whatever reason. Here we are. But let's see some real good debate instead of just going along with the good old boys like always.
How do you see this ending, and how do you want to see it end? And let's just presume, by the way, the January 6 videos, I imagine McCarthy would release whatever. I don't think McCarthy
I don't think so.
But where do you see this going? Well, how do you want to see this end?
Okay, if he's the only one that really wants this job, and he's willing to make those concessions, I said, okay, give it to it, but then hold his feet to the fire and get rid of him if he can't keep his word. I get tired of these people lying like they don't know that we, the people, are watching them.
Johnny, would it change your opinion about these 20 if you found out, and probably not all of them, if you found out that some of them were holding their votes hostage to commitments to leadership positions on different committees, that it was about that personal benefit? Would that change your opinion about them?
If you put somebody on the committee and they have no real power in that, then no, it wouldn't change it, because you have to put people in those committees that are going to do something, not just the same old. And maybe they have some insight where.
Hey, Johnny, Johnny, you're going to have to forgive me, my man. I'm dropping you only because she's here. We've got her on the line right now. I don't know if your ears were burning, but Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, we were just chatting about you all the way out here in Denver, Colorado, while you're out there in the eye of the storm. Thanks for taking time out of it to join us.
Absolutely. And I love what I actually got on the call and started hearing about these committee assignments. That's absolutely correct. We have to have influential voices on committees to make a difference. There are too many people who go along to get along, and that's why our country is now at $32 trillion in debt. That's why we just gave away our spending authority until September of this year with the $1.7 trillion omnibus bill. And that's why we have so many shady deals that are made in Washington, D.C. The American people do not like the way Washington, D.C. is run because it's an insider game that is influenced by lobbyists and their PAC checks rather than the voters back at home.
I think these things that you're talking about, and I heard you on Brett Barron stuff too. I don't think there's anyone out there who is a Republican or even a sane unaffiliated who doesn't nod their head and think, yes, please, right? Like term limits, yes, please on all these things.
Yes.
Aside from the substantive, a balanced budget, but aside from the substantive stuff that we like, though, this procedural thing, I don't know if it's a hiccup or a stumble or whatever, this thing is a little bit different than that. And so what I'd like to do is say, yesterday we had the 3 votes. The 3 votes were unsuccessful for Kevin McCarthy. He needs the 218 votes. He didn't get that. I don't think he got north of 210. Today, where are we procedurally? I know things are crazy out there. What's going on this morning?
Well, I think we're farther along than we were yesterday. There are more members of the conference who are realizing Kevin McCarthy does not have the vote. As I explained in interviews yesterday, I have been working behind the scenes for months to try to get Kevin the gavel on the first ballot, to bring unity to the Republican Party. And at the end of the day, that's still what I want. I want unity in the Republican Party. So whoever that person is that emerges that will unify us, bring it on. But it's not Kevin at this point. We brought him a very common sense offer. He asked us about the committee assignments. We want you on some important committees. Which committees are you willing to serve on? We simply provided that list for him. And then these other common sense proposals, a balanced budget, term limits, a border bill to secure our southern border, amendments to be made in order that reduce the national debt. Very common sense items, and then a few others. And he would not engage in the conversation. He would not have any sort of discussion whatsoever. And so we are to a point now where we have 20 that are not changing their vote.
You're one of them.
Speaker. I am one of them. And, it's really unfortunate because I told Kevin, I have never Kevin on board with me.
That's incredible.
Who have gone public. Yes. They have gone public for months saying we will not vote for him under any circumstances. And I got them there and he rejected it. So now here we are. There are other members of the conference who are realizing Kevin does not have the votes, and they're looking around at who is going to be the person who emerges from the ashes and unites the Republican Party. And we are working hard to find that person. We certainly have some ideas that you'll hear as these votes come along, but we aren't budging. I want the American people to rest assured we are not going to have a Democrat speaker. We are not going to end up with someone who is worse than Kevin McCarthy, who is less trustworthy. I don't know if you could find a person who's less trustworthy. And that's really the importance here. We needed accountability for the speaker. And that was another important point of leverage that he was rejecting. He wants more responsibility with less accountability. And so this is where we're at. I'm excited. I want people at home to be encouraged. This was one day that Congress didn't organize, and really the American taxpayers are the ones who benefited from it because we weren't sending billions of dollars to Ukraine yesterday.
Now that's great information. I've got a lot of questions based on just what you've said there. Let's back up just a little bit. One, were you or are you now a never Kevener?
Yes, that is where I am now. I mean, it would have to be, it would have to go so much further than what we had presented before to unify.
Okay, that's interesting.
People.
So
I think
if he called you up today and said, Congresswoman Boebert, you know what? I was an idiot. I should have agreed to the terms that you offered me yesterday or the day before, or whatever it is. I'm willing to go down that road with you. Would you say at this point, not enough?
Well, the problem is my vote is not enough to make that happen, because that number has increased from the 5 that were public before the vote to a much higher number. And, you know, this is grassroots working. This is us actually engaging in a democratic process, truly. And this isn't chaos. This is a republic. So I'm excited about this. I believe that this is working exactly how our founding fathers intended. They expected us to have our vote and use our vote, not just anoint someone for a position. So, you know, we were threatened yesterday by a potential soon-to-be chairman of a committee who said anyone who votes against Kevin McCarthy will not be placed on committee. And that made a lot of moderate Republicans very upset. That's like, I mean, that's one of the worst things that you can say to your conference, that we aren't going to put you on a committee. And, you know, it has a lot of people looking at the efforts that we're doing and cheering us on in the background.
When you talk about the committees, you had mentioned earlier on in one of your answers that you had approached Kevin with a proposal. He'd asked, what committees do these different people want to be on? You included. Can you tell us which committees did you say, I want to be on these committees as a voice for my district?
Oh, absolutely. Because this is something that we provide anyway. This is something that we have provided all along. Every member of Congress is asked, what committee do you want to serve on? And my 2 committees are natural resources and either oversight or judiciary. So I currently serve on natural resources, and I previously served on natural resources and the budget committee. No one serves on a committee right now. We aren't even members of Congress right now. We're members elect. We haven't been sworn in.
Right.
We've been sworn at.
That's right.
But I want to switch my budget committee to either oversight or judiciary. But he was specifically wanting to know which A committees. We have A and B committees here, and these important committees like Ways and Means, Appropriations, Energy and Commerce.
Right.
He specifically wanted to know what members wanted to serve there. I wasn't asking for an A committee. But this is something every member of Congress provides to both the leadership and the steering committee, so we can put people in positions where they can best serve.
Were the requests also to not just serve on specific committees, but to have leadership roles on those committees?
I don't believe there were leadership roles on those committees. I could be wrong, but there is a church style committee we were asking for a chairmanship on. So the church style committee is something that we put forward as a proposal in the summer to Kevin McCarthy. He ended up going public saying we're going to have that, except he wanted to have that committee under the Judiciary Committee's control. And we said we want that separate from the Judiciary Committee. We want it to be its own select committee so we could have these investigations. We wanted it populated similarly to the January 6th committee with staffing and authority in that way. And then the committee could be populated by the steering and leadership, as all committees are.
Had you asked for any leadership roles on any of the committees?
I have already been talking to my soon-to-be chairman of the Natural Resources Committee about a chairmanship in the Oversight Subcommittee for Natural Resources. This is something that we had discussed last Congress. This is something that we have been discussing during organization. So none of this is out of the ordinary for any member of Congress. And frankly, these requests are made on a daily basis.
If you had to guess right now, we're in day 2 of this. When does this end? And maybe more importantly, how does this end? Who else is legitimately a potential speaker? And I say that in light of the fact that Jim Jordan, who got some votes, had said, please vote for Kevin McCarthy. I'm voting for Kevin McCarthy. Also, Donald Trump has come out today and said, vote for Kevin McCarthy. Let's do this thing. Let's end this and get it forward. Do those voices make a difference to you or the others? And if not, where does this go?
I don't believe those statements make a difference. This does not change my opinion of Kevin McCarthy, President Trump, or my vote, or Jim Jordan. And, Jim Jordan, I think it's very interesting to note that he was asked by Kevin McCarthy's people to explicitly say, I will not run for speaker. I will not accept the gavel. And in his nominating speech, he didn't go there. And I think that was very intentional. And it's something that the American people need to note. The fact is, Kevin McCarthy doesn't have the vote. We want unity. We want to get to work. But also, our spending authority is gone until September. That's something that the Senate gave away. Senate Republicans gave that away. And unfortunately, I don't think that we had leadership that was fighting hard enough against the Senate for that. And I saw that a lot in my freshman term as a member of Congress, where we caved on so many things. And we would be in conferences where we have a whip position in leadership, where that leadership member and his team are responsible for whipping votes and getting people on board with things. And they would say, look, we aren't going to vote for this, but you do what you want. And that started with the infrastructure deal. We had House Republicans cave on the infrastructure, and we knew that Build Back Better would follow that infrastructure deal. The infrastructure deal it was $1.2 trillion, and only 9% of it went to actual infrastructure. And our conference could not keep the people together to just hold the line on this. Yes, we want infrastructure, but we want more than 9% of it. And so these are frustrations that have been going on in Washington, D.C. for far too long, and we have to change the way things are operated here.
And I agree with that. And I don't know if we get there through this process or not, but let me ask you a couple questions. One, is there a version of something that gets you back to voting for Kevin McCarthy, or is it, nope, that ship has sailed? And two, if that's true, who is it out there that you see being the person that ends up becoming the compromise speaker? Because the last compromise speaker we had was, I think, a guy named Paul Ryan. And I'm not sure we're going that direction.
Correct. And so I do believe that the votes are burned at this point, because there are new people who were not public prior to the vote who say, he cannot get me back. And so I think that is over, and we do have to start looking at a consensus candidate. And, there are many names that come to mind. We still have Jim Jordan as someone that we're supporting. Byron Donalds is a great member of Congress, a great leader. We have Lee Zeldin, who actually won us the majority. We have Representative Kevin Hearn from Oklahoma. He is the chairman of the Republican Study Committee, which is the largest caucus in the Republican Party. And he just won that chairmanship with 173 votes. He's a very strong and principled man. And so there are many names that we can look to and go to. And I can tell you, these names are being floated around the conference with people who yesterday were voting for Kevin McCarthy.
When does this thing end? I mean, Kevin doesn't have 10 votes. He's got north of 200. How does this end? How many votes, best guess? And are you willing to say, because you pointed this out at the beginning, you're not even a congresswoman yet. You're a congresswoman elect. That's true for the entire 435 member body until a House Speaker gets nailed down. How long are you and the others willing to wait out the change in whoever can be the Speaker of the House? How long can it take?
I think we're past the point of blood oath, and we will take as long as needed to get this right for the American people.
I mean, it could be a week. Let's say, I'm making this up, but let's say it's like a week or 10 days or more than that.
Until until the cherry blossoms bloom in DC.
And that's very
we
pretty.
are going to get this right.
Interesting. Another couple quick questions here, and I know you got to get back to it. When you look at this process, I'm looking at the texts that are coming in here, and it's so interesting to me. There are some texts that are coming in, they're just like, I'm so thankful for Lauren Boebert for standing up, and this is a time for conservatives. There was even someone that texted in, would Lauren consider being Speaker of the House? And then there are other texts that say, this is a dumpster fire. I am tired of seeing Democrats across the aisle on TV smiling about this disarray. How in the world are we ever going to prove to the country that Republicans can lead? How do you address that second group?
Yes, I get it. It's uncomfortable. It's frustrating. It's frustrating for me, having worked behind the scenes, not going public with any position for months, trying to bring unity. It's very disheartening to be at this point where we couldn't reach an agreement. And, you know, I understand the sentiment. I would say, trust us, trust the process. We are working for the benefit of the American people. So the Democrats, sure, they're smiling, but they don't have the votes anyway. They're not going to be Speaker. So let them smile all they want. We are going to have the gavel, and we are going to get our country back on track with the right Speaker. It may take a little bit of time, but you know that's part of the way this runs here in Washington, D.C. There are backroom conversations that take place on a regular basis. But unfortunately, they're usually for the detriment of the American people. And for once we have an opportunity to fundamentally change the way we do business in Washington, D.C.
Can you be picked off? Can any of the other of the 20 be picked off individually by having whatever their individual demands are met? You get to be in the leadership role and the oversight from natural resources. Go ahead.
This was never an individual demand list. This was never an individual demand request or deal. This was what is best for all of us. And there are too many people who are done making deals and are seeing that even what we have solidified in deals, we have a pretty phenomenal rules package right now. It could be better. There are still some other things that we would like to see, but here's some of that insider information that not every American citizen realizes because they're not here and paying attention. I certainly didn't know until I got here, but even in our rules on how we govern, we are a majority rule self-governing body. We implement rules that we adhere to each and every Congress, but those rules can be waived every single day, and then they do what they want. That is how Nancy Pelosi has operated as Speaker. That's why motion to vacate was so important, because if you have a Speaker that allows the Rules Committee to waive the rules, nothing matters, and they do whatever they want. And that is why you have to have an accountability mechanism in place. Kevin wanted to follow Nancy Pelosi's precedent and not have that accountability lever in place for members to utilize. That is a huge frustration. So no, I don't believe that we could be picked off.
As you know well, the media, both here in Colorado and nationally, are super balanced. No, I'm kidding. Super in the bag for the other side. And not just that, but like the Denver Post has, I think, a bounty on your head to try to take you out. Having said that, with that environment that's out here, right? Two battle versus war questions. Is this one of those things where on a local level at CD3 that you could win this battle, but the impact of this would cost you a re-election in 2024? I mean, as you know, it was such a narrow victory. How do you think this plays with the voters, especially the unaffiliated in the third CD? And then on the macro level, at the national level, do you think in terms of we could win this battle, but it will create an environment in the next 2 years? And I had described this to Kristi Burton Brown this way. It's not going to be like whoever Speaker is herding cats. They're going to be herding cats on meth who are lit on fire. I mean, do you have, and that may end up costing us leadership down the road. And I mean, majority in the House or the Senate. What are your thoughts on that?
I believe right now, just in today's environment, you can certainly look at, will Lauren Boebert be reelected? And could this cost an election? And that very may well be something that, people are discussing right now. But I think once we get this right, it will embolden Republicans. It will embolden unaffiliated voters to show that we can lead. There are plenty of people who want to go along to get along, but that is not helping our country. That's not reducing our $32 trillion that we currently have in debt. None of that is actually working for the American people. They get steamrolled on a regular basis by Congress. So I am perfectly content knowing that I did everything in my power to serve my country correctly.
The legislation that you referenced that you want to see, and I listen, everything you said, I'm like, that makes total sense to me. I want to see that happen. There's no doubt in my mind that whatever success could be generated out of the House with this thin Republican majority will crash on the rocks of the Democrats in the Senate. That being the reality, and it would never be signed in. Why make that the hill upon which the 20 of you die in terms of trying to get a speaker elected?
Well, if everything's going to die in the Senate, then what does any of this matter? We are setting a precedent for the things that are going to get our country back on track. And if we aren't committed to take a stand, knowing that it's not going to pass in the Senate or be signed in the White House, then what's the point of any of this? We have to make this attempt to save our republic, to defend the American people. The church-style hearings that we want to have, these are real investigations. They're not show pony hearings like we saw with Benghazi, where it was just political theater with Trey Gowdy getting all the glory and accomplishing nothing for the American people. These are things that we want to make sure that there is follow-up after the investigation, that corruption is exposed, and that people are actually held accountable. We wanted more teeth in this committee than Kevin McCarthy was proposing, and so these are more of the requests that we have that actually help our country, that show the disinformation that's been coming from the media and hiding the corruption that's going on. I'm tired of the political theater here, and I actually want to get something done. And we'll certainly put pressure on the Senate to pass the legislation that we're working on. But also, the Senate gave away the majority of our authority in that $1.7 trillion omnibus bill. Think about it. We have 75 new members of Congress that are unable to have a decision in this year's spending. That is unheard of. You've never seen a lame duck session take place where they pass a spending bill in that magnitude, and then everyone's voices are silent. Nancy Pelosi is ruling with a dead hand for the next 9 months.
Can you tell the last question, and I know you got to get back to it, give us a sense of what happens today, procedurally, timing, and how do you think this thing ends? Do we have a speaker at the end of the day, or is this going to be round 3 tomorrow?
I would love for this to be over today. I would love for people to, who are realizing in the background, Kevin doesn't have the votes, that are cheering us on, to come on board. I'm tired of living this life of insanity, of doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. We have to deliver on the promises to secure the border and reduce inflation and conduct serious oversight of the Biden administration. And, today I'm prepared to say that Byron Donalds is the man to do that. If there are still folks voting for Jim Jordan, then more power to him. That's fantastic.
What about
Love
Scalise?
Jim Jordan. I don't think Scalise is the guy. I think Scalise is a Kevin McCarthy. He's a wonderful man. I get it. He's hailed as a national hero. But he's a wonderful man personally. I don't see him in the speaker's position.
Percentage chance that Kevin McCarthy becomes the Speaker of the House for this congressional session?
Today I'm at a 0.
0%. Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your day. If there was something else you wanted to say before you go, please do it.
Okay. You got it.
Hey, thank you so much. We'll have you back on as soon as your schedule permits. We'll be following you. We'll be watching you in the news. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Hey, that was Congresswoman Lauren Boebert. I really appreciate her time on this. We went so long, as you can imagine, blew through breaks for obvious reasons. This is the cutting current news of the day. Get your reaction to it. Get the phone lines lit up. We're going to have to run a bunch of ads here, but I promise you, if you call in, we're going to get you on before the end of the show. It's George Brauchler on The George Show, 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
Oh, a favorite show tune of mine growing up, of course, the sound from Late Night with our buddy David Letterman. George Brauchler back with you here on 710 KNUS. Got a little bit of time left, and then I promise you, if you call in and the lines are full as we work through the 9 o'clock hour, and this is what we're going to talk about, folks. I want to get your reaction to that interview with Lauren Boebert. Really good information that's in there, and the texts have been so, all over the spectrum in terms of support and a lack of support and straight up opposition. It'll be very interesting. What did you hear? What's your reaction to the interview, and what's going on out there in Washington, D.C. with the speaker fight? Kevin McCarthy, if you listen to Lauren Boebert's last answer, chances of him becoming speaker, 0% chance of him becoming speaker. That is fascinating news for us to talk about with you. Hey, before I go and grab a caller, though, I do need to tell you about a dude who stands a 100% chance of being elected best civil attorney in the metro area, if not the state of Colorado. That's a dude named Dan Kaplis, and it's because of the way he's been doing business for the last few decades. Now, you hear me talk about Dan all the time. I get a brag on the guy. One, I know him, and not just from the radio. Before there was a radio where I used to fill in for him, I was an associate attorney in his law firm. I left the DA's office to go work for Dan and his partner at the time. And Dan taught me how to do civil cases. And of course, since I left there, the firm has actually done a lot better. Don't read anything into that. But I got to know Dan as a professional, as an attorney, and I know how he does it. Now, there's a bunch of different ways that if you're injured and you're suffering because of someone else's negligence or recklessness, there's a bunch of firms you could go to. There are many of them out there that are volume firms. They want as many cases as possible, churn and burn and rake in that insurance company money. That's not Dan. That's not Dan Kaplis. That's not Boebert Waheed. These are guys that are going to get together with you and say, you're the little guy, they're the big guy. We're not looking to do anything fast. We're looking to do things right. And if fast is right, they'll do it. But that's just not the model for the insurance companies. They want to attrit you out. They want to weight you down. All these other things. They want to try to threaten you to go to court. You can't do it to a guy who's got the resources, experience, and frankly, demonstrated track record that Dan has. Can't do that with him. So if you're looking to find someone who will be your champion in that last, on that last town street there, and that shootout with the insurance company for someone that hurt you, you got to get Dan Kaplis. There's a new marshal in town, but he's been there for about 3 decades, and that's Dan Kaplis. You can reach him at 303-770-5551, 303-770-5551, or you can reach him at Dan Kaplis Law. Kaplis is Caplis, dankaplis.law.com. Now, listen, I've got about 1 minute before the music starts playing. So let me tell you, those of you, the first 3 that are on hold here, John, Brian, John, whatever, that order. I will get to you. I promise you in the 9 o'clock hour. It's not going to be fair to you to take you and say, give me 15 seconds and then cut you loose. That's just not fair. And it's not worth your time or mine or the listener. So we're going to take you at the top of the hour. But here's the deal. Lauren Boebert was on with us for a good period of time, answered some good questions, had plenty of runway to give answers. I think folks out there have found many of her answers to be principled. I see that in the text. I also see texts from people who are like, I like Lauren, but we've got to end this. This looks horrible for the Republican Party. Let's move on, get out of the politics and back to governing. Interesting. And a lot of opinions in between. Where are you on this? What's the most interesting thing that you heard during that interview? My thanks to Lauren Boebert for coming on during the eye of the storm. We don't know when this thing can end, but she gave us an indication. She said the cherry blossoms in D.C. could bloom before this thing ends if we don't get the right outcome. What are your thoughts on that? Give us a call at 303-696-1971. George Brauchler on The George Show, 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
George Brauchler right back with you here on 710 KNUS. If you missed the last hour, you missed pretty long and I think informative interview with Congresswoman Lauren Boebert from Colorado's 3rd Congressional District. She is one of the 20 right now. And if you listen to Hugh Hewitt before we came on air, he was asking the question, do you stand with the 20 or do you stand with the 200? As you know, Kevin McCarthy's dreams of becoming Speaker of the House seem to be on the rocks right now, in part because of Congresswoman Boebert's and 19 others, I think almost entirely from the Freedom Caucus. What is interesting about this is that it's not unanimous within the Freedom Caucus. It's bigger than just those 20. In fact, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I think many view and rightfully view as a pretty controversial member on the extreme edge of the conservative part of the party, even she had this to say yesterday about the proceedings.
But in that conference meeting there, we found out that there were several members, 3 in fact, that went in last night and were demanding positions for themselves, demanding gavel positions, demanding subcommittees, demanding for people to be taken off committees and people to be put on committees. Three Republicans out of our 222. I want you all to know I have not done that for myself. The only thing I have done is debate and request and argue amongst my peers for the right things, for the rules package and for our agenda for the American people. And that's the only thing I've done. I haven't asked for one thing for myself. And I'm the only Republican that has 0 committees. So you would think I would be the one in there asking for something, but I haven't done that. But I find out that it's my Freedom Caucus colleagues and my supposed friends that went and did that, and they asked nothing for me. Nothing. That's what I found out in there. I'm furious.
Well, now that last part is the only part that's got me a little flummoxed. Is she furious because they didn't ask for anything for her, or is she furious because it seems like this process is being held hostage to the, in part, personal ambitions of some of the Congress people, the 20 that are not voting for Kevin McCarthy, they're voting for other folks. Now, what was really interesting to me about the interview with Lauren Boebert, there's a bunch of different pieces, was the scuttlebutt really behind the scenes had been, hey, is there a slow move towards Steve Scalise? Could he be the compromise candidate, the Paul Ryan of this batch? And in fact, Congresswoman Boebert made it pretty clear, no to Steve Scalise. He is just like Kevin McCarthy. That is very, very interesting to me. Anxious to get your feedback on what you heard, going right to the phone lines. Brian, you're on 710 KNUS. Brian, what did you think about that? What are your thoughts?
It was a great interview. And, I think the Freedom Caucus has more on the pulse of America than the other members do. What they were asking for, George, is reasonable. I didn't think it was unreasonable. So she pretty much put to bed that they're holding them hostage. Like, yeah, they want people on committees. So do I. People that have been on committees, they're not doing the right thing. So she wants the right people on the right committees. They're not asking for much. And whether it was Kevin McCarthy's ego or his arrogance, he shot himself in the foot because he's not going to be Speaker of the House now. And all he had to do was give in.
About the leadership part? I mean, I asked Lauren straight up, did you ask for a leadership position? And as you know, the leadership thing is a function of the vote and the leadership of the actual party in power, but it really is a function too, to some extent, of longevity in the position. Congresswoman Boebert is a second-term Congresswoman. Does that concern you at all, that some of this seems to be about put me in a leadership position?
On a subcommittee? No, right. That doesn't concern me
on
at
an
all.
Oversight subcommittee.
Well, yeah, there's something she's passionate about. It's like she said, these people make it clear early what they want, what committees they want to be on. It's not a secret. It's not like they came at the 11th hour and said, put me in this position. They've made it clear they want to be on these positions far before this vote ever came into existence. So the fact they're using that as leverage, I guarantee McCarthy gave away so many leadership roles and so many committees to get the votes that he got. Brian, he's doing it. So why shouldn't they do it?
Look, I think for folks on the conservative side of the ideological spectrum, and I see these texts coming in right now, there are folks who are like, I'm so glad she is standing her ground. I'm glad, blah, blah, blah. And I get all that stuff. Do you worry about the battle versus war perspective, where if the conservatives figure out a way to win this, so damaged and weakened will not only the speaker be, but the Republican brand coming out at the national level, that our ability, one, to govern at all is going to be incredibly limited. And two, it just sets the stage for 2 years of a mainstream media continuing to try to harp on the fact that we are ineffective as leaders, we can't get anything done, and that will have disastrous consequences as we try to take back the Senate and hold the House in 2024.
No, I don't. And I think I'll echo what Lauren said. The media is going to do whatever they're going to say. The Democrats are going to say whatever they're going to say. She's doing what's right for the country. Mitch McConnell shot everybody in the foot when he voted for that stupid bill before the year ended, screwing over the new members of Congress in the House, and now he's wondering why this is all blowing up in McCarthy's face. He's the culprit for doing that. So yeah, our brand is already ruined because of McConnell. She's trying to rebrand us, and that's what I'm standing for. Rebranding.
How long would you tolerate the House not even standing up? Because right now there are no members of the House of Representatives, right? Until they get a speaker. How long do you think it's appropriate to do this?
As long as it takes. And you know what? They're not going to look at Boebert as the problem. Not me. We're going to look at McCarthy. Guess what? You don't have the votes. Step down and let somebody get the votes. What are you going to do? You called their bluff and you lost. So now what are you going to do? Hold out the country when you don't have the votes? You don't have the votes, Kevin. You don't have the votes.
Would it matter to you if what was at stake was Hakeem Jeffries becoming the speaker? And what I mean by that is you get enough Kevin McCarthy supporters who say, I've had enough of this nonsense. We're not going to do this anymore. And they stop showing up. They don't vote for Hakeem Jeffries. They just don't show up. And so they lower the threshold necessary for someone to be speaker. And guess who has every single Democrat vote? Right now, the top vote getter out of 3 votes is Hakeem Jeffries.
That's not going to happen, George. Like if Republicans were to do that, the ones that stop showing up would sink their career. They're not going to do it.
But you don't think this is going to sink the career of the 20 that are involved? Like Lauren won her district by 500 votes, and there's a lot of reasons for it. But do you worry at all that this could end up resulting in Congressman Adam Frisch in 2 years?
No. What I'm excited. I'm with Lauren Boebert on this. I'm excited. Like finally somebody's standing up to these people and is going to say, no, we want all these things that the American people want. All the stuff
Brian,
she's asking
and I get that, but Brian, you
want.
are a conservative. How do you think this plays with the unaffiliated voters who make the decisions about who serves?
I'm tired of taking that into calculation, George, because every time we do, we lose.
That's not true.
Every time we try to consider the unaffiliated, these people, moderates, we lose. This is something to die on the hill with. And McCarthy, he shot himself in the foot. So yeah, Scalise will take it. Jordan will take it. He's probably got the votes.
Boebert said she wouldn't support for Scalise. There's no support for Scalise.
Well, I don't know, but there's no support for Jordan. I mean, for McCarthy at this point. Like I'm saying, he screwed himself. And that's what happens to the GOP when they're too arrogant. They're like, oh, these crazies on the right, we're not going to get into them. Well, now guess what? You don't have the votes, bro. So I'm sorry. And it's the same thing with KBB. Like this morning, she's like, I hate Adam Gates. I detest Adam Gates. That's not something you say if you're in a leadership role, even if that's how you feel, George. That's not something
but
you
she's
say.
not in a leadership role for the National House. She's just here in Colorado.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Some people who do like those people, you're alienating them by saying that just for your opinion to get out there. That's what I'm sick of with this GOP. We don't care about your opinions. Keep them to yourself.
Well, hang on. We just heard Congresswoman Boebert. We just heard Congresswoman Boebert say that Kevin McCarthy can't be trusted. How is that different? How is that different, though?
Did she say she detested him?
Well, you think that's the difference?
I saw vitriol. I heard vitriol in KBB for Adam Gates. That's not what you do in leadership roles, George. So that's why it's proving that wasn't the right person, because you alienate people when you do that.
I'll be honest. I would rather hear that kind of candor, so I know where a person is coming from, rather than that my good friend. There's a time for that civility, but I'd love to know that the animus between people is not on policy grounds, but it's on personal grounds. Then that's all you need to know. then there is nothing else that you need to discuss about that. I get there, and we can have a discussion about why it's there, but I'm not really opposed to that. And I certainly don't think because KBB
problem,
is the chair of the state party, she's limited from discussing some other member of the House. He's just one of 435, man. I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking about less than 5% of the House. We're talking about what, maybe less than 5% of the House?
Yeah.
Less than 10% of the House holding hostage the entire process?
One person. Yeah, you're right, but they're not, and that's the thing. She abolished that holding hostage thing. Sorry. That narrative is done. Because they're asking for reasonable things.
So wait a minute. If you're asking about is
you're asking
reasonable,
for unreasonable things you don't deserve. They're asking for reasonable things that we deserve.
Right there.
Well, think about a hostage situation. They want money they don't deserve. They want this they don't deserve.
At the 30,000 foot level, holding someone hostage is saying, "I won't do this unless you give me that." That's it, right?
Reasonable demands that are going to improve the country. I don't see it as a hostage situation. Yeah. Why wouldn't Kevin McCarthy sign on to those things? Why wouldn't he?
We don't know yet because I haven't heard what Kevin's version is.
That's who we should be looking at.
Well,
that's who we should be looking at.
I think we're going to have an opportunity to hear from him. I just don't know who the speaker is at the end of the day, but I can tell you whatever your and my opinion about these issues are and how reasonable, necessary, and important they are. If we lose the perception of the unaffiliated voters who you're saying we shouldn't care about them anymore, I promise you Colorado gets bluer. And at the national level, we lose the majority in the House, the scant majority we have, and we never get back the majority in the Senate.
I'm tired of hearing that, George.
That can't be the universe we want.
That's always what you're going to say, George, is if we don't do this, we're going to get this. Well, we already got it, and we didn't do it.
So buddy, you're telling me
now.
These 20 have their finger on the pulse of the Americans that sent the other 415 to Congress.
They're tired of the status quo. And if Kevin McCarthy is going to... The American people. We're sick of it.
Based on what? Based on what? Then why aren't there 200 people voting against Kevin McCarthy? If the American people are opposed to it, this
is how the old guard GOP acts all the time. They get so upset when new blood wants to come in and shake things up and tired of doing it the old way. They get all mad and call them crazy. That's what sunk the GOP party in Colorado.
There's a bunch of new members elect who are supporting McCarthy. How do you explain that?
How it always happens, George. He gives them stuff to vote for him.
Brian, the problem I'm having here is...
How did Mitch McConnell become the head of the Senate again? Because he gave away a bunch of crap.
Maybe, but the dude's a brilliant tactician when it comes to running that Senate. Nobody's done a better job than he has in the modern era. But the bigger thing is
until a week ago, George, when he sold out the American people.
Yeah, I understand. When you say Americans are sick of this, buddy, you got to speak for just you and the folks that you know, because there is not a single vote that you can point to that took place in this midterm election that tells you that the American people feel the way you've described them. Nothing that happened.
We took the House over.
Oh my God. We should have taken the House over by 20 or 30 seats. We eked out a bare majority, buddy. We should have taken back the Senate. We lost a seat in the Senate. I mean, what is the vote that lets you know that the American people are tired of this?
And you want to blame what? Trump supporters? You want to blame...
I'm not blaming Trump supporters. I'm telling you that when given options between the people that Trump pushed for governor and senator, when people were given an option, they didn't vote that way. So where do you look in America and say Americans are sick of this? Instead of just Brian is sick of this. Where is it that Americans are sick of this?
Okay, George, maybe you got me on that point that I think Americans are sick of it. I think we're tired of the status quo. And what Mitch McConnell did, he ruined the Republican Party by voting for that bill and dissing. And that's the thing. He did it after the vote. So, yeah, we don't know how many Republicans right now are ticked off because they screwed over the House and voted for this omnibus bill. We don't know how many, George. So, yeah, I can't speak for it, but neither can you, because he did that after the vote.
Yeah,
so you know what? Those people are probably so ticked off, they're not going to vote for the Republicans anymore because this is what they do when we do vote for them.
There are more than 200 members of the Republican House caucus, the vast majority of whom don't hold leadership positions on committees, who are voting for Kevin McCarthy. So this idea that there's this groundswell of support, I just haven't seen it yet. And man, Brian, I took you for a long time because I love the call as always. 303-696-1971. Brian's line is open. I don't see it. Now, these may be people that you view as principled enough that I want to see them to continue to do this. How long do you think we can hold out without a functioning House of Representatives? And what message do you think that will send? You know, Brian's point is, and I've heard this a lot, let's stop caring about the unaffiliated, because every time we seem to give them any sort of deference or care about what they think, I'm telling you, folks, it's only going to get worse if all we do is say, let's circle the wagons. That's the same mentality that says we ought to just have a handful of the most active grassroots Republicans at an assembly determine who our nominees are. You want to banish the Republican Party to fourth-tier minority status in the state of Colorado. That is exactly the way to do it. If you're out there thinking the reason we lose is we're not nominating people extreme enough or further right enough, you're not living in the same Colorado I'm living in. There's not an election that took place in November that can give you some hope that Coloradans are secretly center-right or more, and they're just waiting for the right candidate to come forward. There's not a single vote you can point to that bears that out. John, you're on 710 KNUS. John, what do you think? Hello, John.
Well, if not now, when?
What does that mean, buddy? That's a nice platitude. What does it mean?
Her thoughts and her arguments need to be presented. Listen, Kevin McCarthy knew 3 months ago, excuse me, what he needed to do to get to be speaker. He's the one that didn't read the tea leaves. He could have really gone all the way over just to become the speaker, and we wouldn't be going through this right now. What I like your question about, aren't you afraid of being reelected? She's not afraid of that. Why is it that politicians always go in the same vein to be able to be reelected?
I don't understand
and they do.
The question.
They do it all the time. Today, the president will fly to Kentucky to sit down and have a news presentation with McConnell about how great $1.7 trillion omnibus bill in a lame duck section, giving $500 million to Middle East security border and nothing to us, instead of waiting it out and having a different outcome when the new Congress is elected. These people are in the swamp.
There isn't going to be a new outcome, my man. There wouldn't be a new outcome because we lost ground in the Senate and we have a bare majority in the House. What do you think would be different? My point is that I don't like this omnibus bill. I disagree with it. But the idea that if we had just waited long enough, we'd have come up with a better bill, that's crack smoke crazy, man. That would have never happened. Here's proof. We can't even get Republicans to unite over who's going to be speaker. We're going to end up with a compromised speaker in a position that is so weakened, not just optically, but practically speaking, that the Republicans in the House will do nothing. At most, we'll conduct a bunch of high-profile publicized investigations and will have advanced the cause of governance 0 feet. Is that what you want?
And where does that all get? It gets you right back to square one. Nothing's being done. One person, a small town restaurant owner from the West Slope of Colorado, now has the microphone in this country. That's amazing. Why don't other people have that microphone?
Don't get me wrong, man. The things that they're asking for, other than the personal stuff about leadership positions, I'm all in favor of it. There's not a thing that I heard her propose that I thought that's dumb. I don't want that. I want all those things. So what? It is never going to happen. I mean, isn't at some point the issue here about how do we get into the end zone? Let's not talk about the best play we could possibly draw up that'll never happen. The sweetest Hail Mary from the 1 yard line, 99 yards for a touchdown. We can draw it up on paper, say we all want it. It will never happen. So this idea that we're now going to create an environment where the voters that we need to secure victories, especially here in Colorado, are going to look at us and say, what in the world is going on?
Colorado's over at the red state. Get over it. It'll be years and years before they elect someone in the Senate or going. It's not
I believe you're right, man. I do believe you're right. I believe you're right. Yeah. I worry about the rest of America, man. I do not want to wake up in 2024 and wake up with a Democrat president, Democrat Senate, Democrat House. How can that be good for America?
Let me ask you this. Kevin McCarthy has 0 chance to go down the road that he's in right now. So what is he going to do if he has 0% chance? He should have been obligated to go in that direction. He'd be speaker today. But he stood firm. Maybe he stood firm on his his convictions. That's fine. But if you want to play politics, you got to play politics. And if he's in a 0% chance, then he has no chance. And if he can't go to the other side and understand what they are saying, he's got 0 chance. So how does that help?
If it cost the Republicans control of the House in 2024, would you still want to see this play out as long and as painfully as it needs to make your point?
I don't care. Blow it up. They're in a swamp. They're all horrible people, left and right. There's very few people make a stand. It takes a small town person from West Slope of this country to go out and say, this isn't right. Why didn't Kevin McCarthy in the last couple of months say the same things that she's saying? Because he's part of the swamp.
John, I appreciate the call, my man. John's line is open, 303-696-1971. Got to cut away for a break, and we'll come back. We'll get John and Aaron and everybody else that's calling in right now. The phone lines are just blowing up. We'll continue to have the conversation with you. Want to tell you about our buddy, Mitch Floria. There just simply isn't any debate about Mitch Floria and the Art of Granite. First off, website's easy, theartofgranite.com. That has a T in it, granite. But his business isn't just about granite. It's about every material you can imagine that you could put into your house to beautify that kitchen or that bathroom with that giant countertop that you have. That's the single bestest way to upgrade the look of the home that you're in right now. And Mitch has been doing it forever. He blew up this business into something great, not because he does mass-produced stuff. It's not because he rushes to get the job done. It's not because he's a volume kind of guy. This is a guy that believes in customer service. He believes in value. He believes in craftsmanship. These are all values that he developed, frankly, when he came over from communist-controlled Romania and became an American citizen here. This is a guy that gets the American spirit and the entrepreneurial spirit at the grassroots level. This is the kind of business that you'll be proud to work with Mitch, and you'll brag to your friends when they come in and say, look at that, man. Who did that? You're going to say, Mitch Floria, super American. So you go check out the Art of Granite on the website, but you really got to get out there and go and see all the different things, the marble, the quartz, the God-made, the man-made materials. Go out there. You mentioned 710 KNUS to Mitch. You mentioned the George Show. You're going to get the bathroom countertop for free with the kitchen countertop. Or if you're only going to upgrade one room this time, give you the sink for free with the kitchen countertop package. Who does that? I'll tell you who. Mitch Floria at the Art of Granite. Now, you got to give him a phone call, too, at 303-386-5919. It's the phone that rings on his hip, 303-386-5919. That's Mitch Floria, the Art of Granite. When we come back, John, Aaron, Jim will continue to make room for new callers. It's George Brauchler on the George Show, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler right back with you here at 710 KNUS. As promised, callers run the show. John, you're on 710. What do you think, John?
Miles and smiles on your radio dial, George.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you so much for having me on. And thanks so much for having on all the callers. It's wonderful hearing some of the folks talk about Lauren and these Republicans cockamamie. I mean, common sense ideas. And
did you hear
really
the interview with Congresswoman Boebert?
I did.
What are your thoughts?
And I'll tell you, she was talking about term limits, and that's something that the House really doesn't have to do. You could start right here in Colorado. The Republican Party ought to say, hey, 2 terms for the House, 2 terms for the Senate. That's our term limits, and that's what we're sticking to.
Well, how do you think this plays out? I mean, what is it you want to see happen, and who ends up being Speaker?
Well, so to me, it seems like governing is the one pain that relief factor doesn't get rid of for Republicans. It seems that they are tied to this tar baby of picking out someone that no one inside of their party likes because they all hate each other.
I don't think this bodes well for us long term. I just don't yet see the silver lining to all of this. It just really feels like a Pyrrhic victory at best. If at the end of the day, the most that can be said is we kept Kevin McCarthy from becoming Speaker, it wasn't worth it. Is that all it is? Do we end today with a Speaker, John, or does this thing go on until the cherry blossoms bloom, the way Congresswoman Boebert said?
It's certainly a bad omen when someone is predicting their timeline based on seasons.
Well, I think what she was trying to say is, I had asked her, hey, when do you think this ends? How long can this go on? And I think what she was trying to say is, because this is a matter of principle for me, and I presume she's talking for the others too, there is no timeline, right? Like, we're going to achieve this outcome that we want, or we're just not going to have a functioning House of Representatives.
And they broke the vase the first day, which was, hey, you haven't selected someone, 100 years of history gone out the window. The thought, I'm sure, for Kevin McCarthy was, okay, they proved their point. So he ran the vote again. Okay, they proved their point. And he ran the vote again without asking them, without talking with them, because they can't stand each other. No one in the Republican Party is able to govern because they're ungovernable.
Yeah, I worry about that too. I worry about that just winning the speakership is nothing. It just sets us on the course for 2 years of ineffective governance. There are so many people out here texting, John, and I want to thank you for your call. John's line is open, 303-696-1971, that are committed to this idea of, yep, it doesn't matter. Burn it down. Burn down the Congress. Congress can stop functioning. We're going to... And I just wonder if there isn't still this belief, and I can see some of these are pretty strongly worded texts, this belief that we are the possessors of the truth. We are the possessors of the right values and the right principles. And as soon as we can put those in place, the rest of America will rally to our cause. We heard that even with Brian, like, Americans are sick. It's like, there's no evidence of that. There's only evidence of the fact that 2 generations of lost educational reform have produced a group of people who are more reliant and looking forward more to government taking care of them than at any time, probably even going back through the Depression. There's just no indication that I've seen, and certainly not in Colorado, but there's just no indication. You can say Republicans won the majority of the votes cast for congressional members. That part is true, but folks, we lost ground on Senate seats we should have won. We lost to Fetterman. We lost to Warnock. Is that because we had the right values, the right principles? We lost governorships. I mean, come on, man. I'm not saying, someone texted in here, this isn't go along to get along. This is a reality call. I mean, I feel like we are more and more just putting ourselves on an island, pushing the ones we don't like off into the ocean and saying this little island here is going to govern the continent. You know, the last folks that tried that were called King George III. That didn't work out well. 303-696-1971. Aaron, you're on 710 KNUS. What do you think, Aaron?
First of all, I had to agree with I had to agree with the 20 holding out. And the thing is, though, Kevin McCarthy, he's going to have to bust his ego balloon, and he's not going to get the gig. He is not going to get the Speaker House gig. It is over. And the thing is, though, that ominous bill that passed 12 days ago, Mitch McConnell and his band of thieves and robbers that were behind this disaster of a bill knew that if they did not pass this disaster of a bill, that the Republicans that were going to come in were going to shut government down. And honestly, with the battle of who's going to be Speaker of the House coming in 2023, he was right about that. That's why this stinker of a bill, robbing, stealing, pillaging, plundering the U.S. Treasury, aka the American voter, passed. Because the thing is, with them coming in here, it would have shut the government completely down. And I'm with the other callers. Well, at least most of the callers. It needs to be blown up. Kevin,
what does that mean? What does that mean?
Kevin's not going to get the gig.
Look, when you talk about Kevin's got to fold up the tent and go home, who do you think should be looking to compromise, the 20 or the 200 plus? Who does it make more sense to say you guys need to change your vote?
Well, the thing is, though, if it's not going to be Kevin, George, who you think should be Speaker of House? Who do you think, George, if it's not going to be Kevin McCarthy, who's there to get along, kiss as much behind, which is what these career politicians do, and they kiss it good. So who's going to be the new Speaker of the House? It's not going to be Kevin. So, George, if you had the power to pick the new Speaker of the House, who would you pick for the be Speaker? Because it's not going to be Kevin. Kevin's not going to get the gig. So who would you pick, George?
Such a good question, because I only know these people at a very superficial level, and some of them not that well at all. Like I know Steve Scalise simply because he was in part of the leadership before. Dude got shot by one of Sanders' supporters, but I just don't know him on a day-to-day basis. That's why it's so important to have the conversations with people like Lauren Boebert and others, and that is they work with these folks all the time. Their opinions matter to me. And so having said that, when I see 20 people holding at bay the will of the other 200 to simply say, well, I picked the 20 and the other 200 are just going to have to come up with a different plan. Does that sound like America?
No, man, that sounds like our republic. Because we are a republic. I'm not going to listen to some dark side, broken down, dumb donkey minority leader. Well, it's a black eye on America's democracy. What a pile of ass. But the thing is, though, George, you still haven't answered my question. If you had the power, who would be the Speaker of the House?
And forgive me for not making it clear. I don't know enough about who are the potential leaders for that position to be able to say, I picked this person. I mean, I'm in a vacuum here with you where I know a little bit about what I see. I just don't know him. I just know that from the past, the compromise speaker that we ended up with one year was Paul Ryan. I presume you weren't excited about that. So how do you know we won't end with that here? Yeah, but how do you know we don't get that here?
Yeah, see, the thing is, I don't know, George. I mean, I'm like you. I'm in a vacuum. I don't know who I would pick. I mean, I love what Laura's coming. Maybe I pick Laura. But the thing is, though, would she have enough votes to get in there? It's all about the vote.
I don't think she wants it, honestly. I don't think that she would want that. But I also don't think there's any chance she could get it either. I think the list of people who could get 212 votes or whatever it is, 218 votes is tough.
And Jim Jordan, he doesn't want the gig either. He says, man, I don't want to deal with these morons, especially dealing with the dumb Democrats in there. So I'm with you, George. I don't know how this is going to play out, but Laura's probably right. It won't be decided until the cherry blossoms arrive.
That will be really interesting to see if the pressure doesn't mount for these folks to give a little, and they're going to have to find a way to declare victory. And so my sense is this will go on long enough until there's pressure on one person to be able to declare victory in order to change. But if you listen to Congresswoman Boebert today, she's made it pretty clear she's a never Kevin person, that his chances of being speaker in her mind right now are 0%. and that it's going to have to be someone else. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. All right, George.
Aaron, thank you, my man. Thanks for listening. Thanks for the call. Aaron's line is open at 303-696-1971. Jim, Carol, I promise I'll get you on the phone after this. We kind of got wonky here with the breaks, if only because we took Lauren at an interesting time when she could make it, which you can imagine why we would do that. And we just went long. I'm glad she stayed with us as long as she did. I'm anxious to see what happens in the House today. Let me tell you about something that can happen in your house today, and that is you can make the lighting world class. Now, I'm not saying your lighting right now isn't, but my guess is if you're like my house, it's okay. It's serviceable. It does the job. Maybe you're looking to do something to take it to that next level. Urban Lights. UrbanLightsDenver.com is the website, but you're cheating yourself out of a wonderful experience with some wonderful people if you don't get in the car and drive just south of I-25 on Santa Fe between Mississippi and Florida, right behind that McDonald's that everybody goes by north and south. Turn into the parking lot, go up the little stairs, say hi to Dave and his team. These people are wonderful in an environment, when you know this, in an environment and an economy where keeping employees long-term is so difficult and customer service is maybe as bad as I've ever seen it. These are folks that pride themselves on having long-term employees, experts in their field who will help guide you through the most selection you can possibly imagine. And there's good reason for it. 20,000 square foot national award-winning showroom. If you go see them right now, you can get a sweet, sweet deal. You just tell them you listen to on the George Show on 710 KNUS, and then it gets all good from there, because right after that, you're going to get 40% off MSRP on all lights and decor during this New Year sale. Do it. Go out there and check them out. That's urbanlightsdenver.com. When we come back, Jim, Carol, the calls are lighting up right here. I'll try to get through some of those texts as well. It's George Brauchler on 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes, all in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
George Brauchler right back with you here on 710 KNUS. I know what you're thinking. What do I do with all of that Santa money that I got? I'll tell you exactly what to do with it. You drive out to Littleton Jewelry, right there south of Hudson Gardens on the west side of Santa Fe. You go in and see Jesse or any of his team of super craftsmen. God, these are such nice people too. And 710 listeners. Every time I go out there, they're like, hey, heard the show the other day. Love that. We agree with you. And all the people that disagree with you are horrible human beings. No, they never say that. In fact, what they say is, we love your listeners. I'm like, yeah, me too, even when we disagree. But these folks have figured out a way to make the customized jewelry process really as pain-free as possible and as rewarding for you and the person who's going to receive this gift, this gesture of your love and caring for them. You got to go check them out. Again, just south of Hudson Gardens on Santa Fe. You turn right at the at the jewelry repair sign and check them out at littletonfinejewelry.com. That's littletonfinejewelry.com. Do me a favor. When you get in there, say, George sent me here. Blame him. They'll love that. I want to get right back to the phone lines. Jim, you're on 710. What do you think, Jim?
Good morning, George. Love the show.
Thanks, sir.
I want to nominate Newt Gingrich as the Speaker of the House.
Why?
Because he has the experience. He's conservative. He has no axe to grind that I can tell.
Do you think he would want it? Would anybody want this job, Jim?
I don't know. I can't stand the swamp. Kevin McCarthy, vote him out.
Who do you like of the stable of current congressional members?
Well, unfortunately, I'm from Ohio, and I love Jim Jordan, but he does not want the job.
You know, it's interesting. Congresswoman Boebert
All
said...
Kevin McCarthy has to do is agree to some very conservative requests, and he's in.
What do you think about, though, that some of these requests are for personal benefit? Like, I want to be in leadership on these committees. Does that bother you at all?
Don't know enough about it. The ones I've heard have more to do with finance than anything. You know, how do you stop something from like that $1.7 trillion thing going through in the future, and all the earmarks that get put in there for stuff that doesn't benefit
something you bring up a good point. Something else that Congresswoman Boebert has said on our show in the past is she really wants to see the House adopt rules that are single subject bills. And that's what we have here in Colorado. I'm like, of course, that makes total sense. Of course we want that. That's how you keep from that, all that pork from being piled on.
Well, that's what I heard one of the conservatives who voted against him on another talk show this morning state was something similar to what you just
look, that would be brilliant. I just don't think that's what's going to happen. And I know that we want Congress to change. I do. I want all the things that Lauren talked about. I want the term limits. I want the ability to remove the speaker to be at a low. I want all those things. They all make sense to me. They're not going to happen. It's not going to. That's my sense.
So what do you think about Newt Gingrich?
Well,
I know it's not going to happen.
Listen, I'm always going to like Newt for what he did back with the contract with America when we took back for the House for the first time in 50 plus years. I will always appreciate that guy for that.
If he was willing to take it, would you be for him?
I think Newt would do a great job. I also think he would never want it. At his age, I think this guy would be like, are you kidding me? That's the most thankless job in Washington, D.C. right now. Jim, thank you for the phone call. I want to sneak in as many callers as I can. Carol, you're on 710. What do you think?
Oh, I'm just tired of all the Republicans not getting along, whereas they've already got the votes for the Democrats. And the thing is, I was a Democrat in 1968, and I became a Republican when Donald Trump came down the escalator. My parents, and I'm telling you at this, we moved here from Baltimore. We lived in Towson, Maryland. We were right across the street from Nancy Pelosi's family.
Uh-oh. How was that?
Well, the thing is, she's older than I am. I'm 72. She, I think she might have babysat for us because Mom and Dad were Republican, totally Republican. They left Baltimore as immigrants and came here because this was a Republican state. Right now, I'm so fed up with the Republicans, and I just became a Republican a few years ago. They need to just all get together and get in there. Mark Levin would be a good person to put in as the Speaker of the House. But the thing is, he won't take the job. But the thing is, I like what's his name? Whatever. I'm just so fed up right now about this whole thing. Boebert, I like her, but she is literally, Jim Jordan is not running. It's him that's running, not Jim Jordan.
No, I get it. I wonder, and she made a comment, though, that I thought was a bit telling, and that was that in Jim Jordan's speech on behalf of McCarthy, he did not do the LBJ and did not say, I do not seek nor will I accept the speakership. Yeah. And I wonder if there isn't something there.
Why is she voting for him? Because he's not in there.
Well, he is one of the founders of the Freedom Caucus.
I know.
And, I think that he is far more conservative and certainly appears to be far more conservative in terms of legislation and policy and rules and stuff like that than Kevin McCarthy, but he has backed Kevin so far. I don't know how this ends. It's interesting to me, but I appreciate that Lauren has said, listen, I'm a no vote on Kevin. I'm a never no vote on Kevin at this point, and he has 0% chance of becoming speaker. Here's what I want to do, and Carol, forgive me. I want to say goodbye to you and bring on one more caller if I can. Just try to get as many as I can on for the holding. Holly, you're on 710. What do you think?
George, thank you. I didn't get to hear Lauren. I had just turned it on when you guys were just getting off. So I didn't get to hear what she had to say, but I do like her. George, I have to tell you, first of all, I want to tell you, I have been very impressed with the way that you handle this 4 hours in the morning.
Oh, thank you.
I have not listened. But I mean it. And I'm very conservative. And I hear you stand up for the establishment, and that's okay. But at the same time, I'm hearing you also give people a chance to express their views, and I really like that. So here's my point. I have a feeling, I don't know, but I have a feeling most people will say, I don't want that job. I don't want that job. Right. I don't want that job. No matter who it is, they'll always say that. But if there came a time where there was, say, 109 out of the 218 that said, we want Jim Jordan, we want Jim Jordan, we want Jim Jordan, he might change his mind. Sometimes people do change their mind.
An interesting question. I don't know.
But sometimes people change their mind when they know that enough people want them and they don't have to fight for it like they're fighting for the only tiny little scrap that's left.
It's 20 so far. And Holly, thank you for the call. We're out of time here. But one other thing that the texters brought up, one of the texters was, listen, I want Jim Jordan to not be speaker so that he can focus on the investigations of Fauci and all the other things that he would kick butt on. You make him speaker, he can't be the dude driving that ship. There's some logic to that as well. Listen, my thanks to everybody that called in today. My daughter, of course, KBB, and Congresswoman Lauren Boebert. Listen to the podcast if you missed it. Tomorrow, Rich Wyatt, Dick Wadhams will have you on as well. We'll see what happened today in Congress. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.